Hello, I'd like to call the Town of Hopkinton Planning Board February 7th to order at 7:12. And I'd like to thank you for your patience for waiting. We were waiting to have a quorum. Our first order of business is the approval of minutes from January 3rd, 2018. I'd like to open for a motion.
Move for approval.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Our first order of business is old business, and that's the developmental plan review, plan submission of the photovoltaic solar energy system, AP4 Lot 2. It's the High Street Oak Square Partners is our applicant. And with this review, the planning board may discuss, consider, and vote on this project at this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is George Camoli. I have the pleasure of representing Oak Square Partners. They're before you tonight on two aspects. The second part of your calendar, it's both an advisory opinion to the Town Council on the request from a rezone, which we'll discuss later, and we're before you on a continuation of our development site plan review. Briefly, the property is located on High Street. It's vacant property, pre-existing non-conforming use owned by M&L Holdings LLC. It comprises 6.67 acres. To the east, there is commercial property. To the west is residential property. And to the north and south are residential properties in the church. The current owner has had a controversial past, and fortunately, Oak Square Partners has come forward and is proposed to put a solar array there. Solar array is going to be shown on the plan, and I'll have two witnesses to testify. Before you tonight is a complete application, and I just want to quickly go through it. You have a narrative which is outlined by Jason Gold. It basically gives you the introductory comments that I just proposed. Additionally, we included in the Exhibit 2 is photographs, which are aerial photographs showing the vegetation buffer that currently exists on the slope, which would be to the west, and vegetation buffers to the south and east. There's also in there a development plan checklist, which shows all the outlines of all the required filings have been done. As well, in addition, you have a decommissioning plan that shows what would occur when the site, after 20 years, would be decommissioned if not brought up to date. And included in that, done by Jason Gold, who will testify as an operation and maintenance plan. He'll highlight the pertinent parts. Additionally, you've requested a fence detail. We provided that, a vinyl clad fence, either green or black, which will be elevated 1 feet above the topography so that the small critters can go in and out. And as requested, we provided both a soil survey, a circumference map showing all the properties within 500 feet, and we gave a noise impact assessment, which Jason will speak to at length. Lastly is the site plan. On the site plan, it will show the elevations, it will show the proposed solar array, it will give you construction detail, and it shows the change in the entryway. It went from the existing entryway to a 10-foot brass wide, which meet all the setback requirements in the commission zone. With the chairperson's permission, I call my first witness.
Yes, please.
Mr. Gold? Jason, for the record, before we
Jason Gold,
current occupation?
professional civil engineer,
And how long have you had that license?
for 20 years.
20 years? And you are the project coordinator for the ESS group?
That's correct.
And you are familiar with this particular site?
Yes, sir.
And you prepared the application before the board?
I did.
Now, specifically, as we go through that, I made reference to the introductory comments, which I won't highlight. But the photographs, those are aerial photographs. Could you highlight them for the board?
Yes, photograph 1 and 2 were taken by a drone. Photograph 1 is looking east towards the road across the entire site. And photograph 2 is more of a close-up area of the southern slope.
Now, the photograph 2 shows the vegetation on that southern slope as well.
Yes, it does.
And we are not intending to remove any of the vegetation there, except for where we have to put the solar array.
That's correct, and it's also shade trees.
Now, the tall shaded trees, there was a suggestion if any one of them impinged on the solar array, we would remove them, but we would leave them intact so there would be no soil.
Leave the stumps, that's it.
Going on, you have in there a
Photograph 3.
photograph 3.
That's a photograph taken from High Street looking down the existing driveway towards the site.
Now, if we were to look at that existing driveway after the construction of the solar array, that driveway is going to shift immediately to the, I guess, the east or the west.
A portion of the road.
Going on, looking at the checklist requirements, is it fair to say that our application is complete?
Yes.
Okay. And you provided a decommissioning plan. Could you please highlight that for the board?
The decommissioning plan is prepared by East Solar. They calculated that the net value of removing the array, including the salvage value, is actually negative $3,880. But conservatively, they're recommending a decommission fund of $9,970.
Now, in addition to that, you also provided an operation and maintenance plan. Could you highlight the further parts, Jason?
The operation maintenance plan lists the basic components of operating and maintaining the array, including requirement for an on-service technician, a general system electrical inspection and maintenance items, module washing, vegetation management, mowing, safety training, emergency contact information, and emergency disconnect.
Now, in addition to that, we also prepared and provided fence detail. And could you please explain what proposed fence is?
Yeah, it's a PVC coated chain link fence, either black or green. It'll be 6 feet tall, and the bottom will be 6 inches above the ground.
And that fence is clearly reflected on the site plan we prepared.
Yes, it is.
Now, in addition to that, we also provided a soil survey, and that reflects all the soil types.
Yes, it does. The soil survey shows that the site is Hinkley sandy loam. I'm sorry, Hinkley loamy sand, which has a hydrologic soil group rating of A, which means that it's a well-drained soil.
Now, in addition to that, we also provided at the board's request a noise impact study, did we not?
Yes, we did.
Could you please highlight what that study says and what its conclusions are?
Yes, the noise impact assessment, we modeled the sound from the inverters and the transformer. And the model takes into account the topography and the fact that the ground is not paved. Conservatively, we are not considering any sound reduction from the vegetation or from the panels themselves. The objective was to determine if the noise from the system would exceed 55 decibels at the property boundary, and we found that it does not. In fact, the highest is about 35 decibels at the property line.
Could you give me an example of what 35 decibels would be?
Well, 35 decibels is much quieter than speaking.
So it'd be fair to say that no neighboring property owners would hear or have any influence by this solar array?
Yeah, they're taking into account background noises that wouldn't be noticeable.
Now, lastly, you prepared the actual plans that are currently before the board. Could you please highlight those plans for the board?
Yeah, so for the plan set, the last time we were for the pre-app was just the concept plans. We advanced that to a design plan. The plan set that you have now includes general construction notes, layout, grading, details, the existing conditions plan. The existing conditions plan includes the offsite buildings, which is brought up at the last meeting, abutting properties, and the second sheet shows 500 feet out, which is a checklist item. The fence detail and specs have been provided, which we mentioned are also shown in the plan. The access way, so this is the existing driveway, and this is what you're seeing in that photograph up here. It was mentioned at the last meeting that the access road needs to stay outside the setback. So proposed, it'll be just a grass travel way. Has been relocated to wrap around that proposed setback. We've also added some notes clarifying what's going to be vegetated. So there's a note specifying that all the existing ground vegetation is to remain, except for any shade trees already 10 feet will be removed, leaving the stumps. There's also notes on there specifying that any soil on the slope that gets disturbed while removing the trees or during site work needs to be stabilized. And there are stabilization details provided also. The grading plan has also been completed. And as is described in the concept, the grading plan doesn't include any cut into that slope. So there's no cut into the slope. Any disturbance from earthwork or clearing trees will be stabilized.
Now, in addition to that, as proposed right now, we meet all the setback criteria for a commercial zone,
Yes.
including the entrance road as well.
Yes.
There is no well proposed for the site,
No wells proposed.
no septic is proposed for the site,
No septic.
and the 10-foot grass driveway would be sufficient because no traffic is generated at the site to your knowledge.
Exactly.
Is there any signage proposed?
Minimal signage as required by the solar ordinance.
And is there any lighting proposed for the site? I have no further questions, Mrs. Cole.
Mrs. Wood?
The sound, so really just say, I love how tucked away it is, I love that it has all the foliage covering it. But you said you can't hear anything with background noise or whatnot. Let's say it's a quiet night, there's no cars on the roads, very quiet. In your opinion, do you think anybody could hear anything from the inverters or what's up there?
No, that's really the level that's at.
Okay.
Is quiet background noise. And at night, it's not generating any.
Oh, yeah.
The nice thing is it'll be quiet when it's quiet.
Okay.
I have a question concerning, because it was brought up at our last meeting, about, could you just provide, not gory details, but some details about your stabilizing of the hill? Because there was concerns brought up by the public about that.
Yeah, so if any of the slopes, if any of the existing vegetation gets disturbed, the plans call for vegetating it. Any slopes that are with grass. Any slopes that are steeper than 3 to 1, it was mentioned last time, there's some pretty steep slopes up there, will be enforced with erosion control buckets and then vegetated.
And is it standard practice with regards to leaving the stumps to keep it in?
Yes.
And so that'll keep the soil in it so that you're not going to lose that hill?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Finnegan?
No questions.
Members of the public?
I do. The Russian olive, which is basically the vegetation on those slopes, is invasive. It also is very deep-rooted, and unless you want to hack it off and try to figure out how to get to China, you're not getting those roots out. Those roots are holding that dirt.
So it's good?
Absolutely, it's good. It's not only good, it's great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your credit. I'm not aware of the Russian olive, so thank you.
Well, you don't want it in your backyard,
Okay,
right?
thank you. Well, I might have to take a visit and go check it out. Just to see what
We'll
it
do
is.
that.
Okay.
They spread.
They're
Birds
invasive.
spread.
Yes. Okay. So, any other comments?
May I call my next witness?
Yes, sir, thank you.
John Pattis. John, for the record, your position with Oak Square Apartments.
I'm a principal with the company.
And are you familiar with the site?
I am.
And you're familiar with the plans that have been submitted to the board tonight?
I am.
Is it fair to say you visited the site often and visited with the neighbors as well?
Yes,
Are you under contract to purchase this property?
we are.
And it's subject to being able to put solar array there?
Correct.
Now, being familiar with the neighbors' concerns and the planning board's concerns, do you believe along the adjacent building you addressed all those concerns?
I do.
Now, specifically, tell me a little background about Oak Square and your familiarity with solar projects.
We've been developing solar projects since 2014, primarily in Massachusetts, a variety of rooftops, ground mounts, as well as landfill.
Now, in addition to that, is there, why you took particular interest other than the fact that it doesn't have a lot of vegetation where you put the solar array? Why is this particular site conducive to solar?
It's a unique site. Most notably, it is a gravel pit. There's not too much else you can do with it. But along High Street, there is the electrical infrastructure that's required.
Now, is there any additional incentive to the neighbors if this project were to be approved?
There is. This is a community remote distributed generation project in the Rhode Island Regrowth Program. And in talking with many of the neighbors and other folks in the community, we will be offering bill credits that we can provide as a participant in this program.
And that would go to all the neighbors and anyone in this particular community?
They would go to them first, and anybody in Rhode Island with the national grid is eligible.
Now, if this development site plan were to be approved and likewise the zone change, would you abide by any conditions imposed by this planning board or the Hopkinton Town Council?
Absolutely.
Do you have anything to add?
No, it's been a wonderful experience talking with the neighbors and collaborating with them, and I think we're excited to get started if we're approved.
I have no further questions. You're welcome, Andy.
Councilor Ford?
I can offer general commentary on
Sure.
solar. In general, I think covered land with solar panels is probably not the best use of land, but I understand in this case there's not much else you can do with it. It's in a deep gravel pit. Still, I'd rather see something done with the land. That said, use of open space. That's a conservation commission. That's one of my charges is to bring up the forest for open space. So, I'd rather it be open space, but at the same time, it's not going to hurt anything. It's temporary.
Members of the public? So Jim, this evening, thank you. One second, are you done, sir?
That's done with the site development plan. I'm ready to, after you're done deciding on that, I'll be ready for the next one for your advisory opinion to the Hopkinton Town Council.
Okay, thank you. So members of the board.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Greg makes a motion. I'm prepared to take your motion.
I would move to grant development plan review based on the planning board making the following findings of fact. That one, the proposed development is consistent with the town of Hopkinton comprehensive plan and/or has satisfactorily addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. That the granting of the approval will not result in conditions inimical to the public health, safety, and welfare. The granting of such approval will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of the property in the surrounding area or zoning district. There will be no significant environmental impact from the proposed development as shown on the final plan and all required conditions of approval. And the proposed development has adequate and permanent access to a public street.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Oh, 1 second.
Does that include, does your approval include the decommissioning cost of the project? Is the planning board fine with that?
I was.
Okay, and also, in what, do you have a preference as to what form that should take? Could be a,
George?
could be an escrow.
Maybe an escrow, a bond, or a letter of credit, whichever you prefer.
Escrow is probably the best, if that's available.
And I will include escrowing the bond in my motion.
Thank you.
You okay with your second?
Yeah.
So I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I think I have the next petition too, for the advisory opinion.
Sir?
The record open
Oh,
on the second one.
to open a public hearing on the zoning, future land use. Thank you. So I'd like to officially open the public hearing on a zoning map and future land use map amendment. It's an advisory opinion to the town council. It's a request for zoning future land use map amendments, a photovoltaic solar energy system, AP4 Lot 2, High Street, Oak Square Partners is our applicant. And so the planning board at this may vote and advise the town council on the zoning map and future land use maps changes after the close of this public hearing. The
Thank
hearing
you.
is open. Thank you, sir.
Madam Chairperson, members of the board, Attorney George Camoli representing Oak Square Partners. Once again, it's a request from what we have requested. This is an advisory board, go back to the town council to change this property from RFR 80 to commercial 1 or commercial special. However, this property, in fact, is not RFR 80. It is a site that has given some controversy to the town. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use. Pre-existing non-conforming use is the right by Thank you. It is the right by the property owner who has a use to continue that use even though it isn't consistent with some kind of neighboring uses. In this particular case, M&L Holdings LLC has a pre-existing gravel operation. It has been a bone of contention of what they're actually doing there. Are they using it as a gravel operation or a processing yard? And that's a subject of appeal before the zoning board. What has been fortunate is Oak Square has come forward and has offered to put a solar array there, which we believe is more conducive to the neighboring uses and more consistent with your comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan continually says it's preserved the rural character of the community. In this particular case, your comprehensive plan says restrict potential land uses from the primary aquifer. This particular gravel processing center is right over your primary aquifer. What could happen if a truck were to spill? It could affect your primary aquifer. This solar array has no sources, nothing emanating that would in any way affect that aquifer. It also says in your comprehensive plan to target development to assure to protect the quality of life while balancing business interests and protecting the environment. We believe that this particular application addresses that on point. Most importantly, every community, including their planning board and town council, should go out of their way to try to slowly eliminate pre-existing non-conforming uses. You do it by either attrition, by the change of use by the property owner, or in this case, a rezone. We're before you tonight offering to get rid of what is a controversial pre-existing use, putting a passive solar array, which is green energy, and not fortunate enough to represent a client who's proposing this thing. We hope you give a positive advisory opinion to the council. Thank you.
I'm good.
Sure. I would argue that just because people don't like it, doesn't mean we should change our zoning maps. I recognize that that solves problems, but I don't think that's the right reason to change the zone maps. That's a given, if there were restrictions on it, so that this is a solar array, that it does not become general manufacturing, I'd be easier with it. I'm concerned in 25 years from now, what if somebody decides to put a porch there? As you know, a solar array, as far as this is probably the most benign use I can think of. But yeah, so there's my 2 cents. I'm going to vote. So.
If I may address that, Madam Chairperson, we appeared before the town council already, and one of their conditions was that this be a solar array and it be revisited in 20 years. And under the Zoning Enabling Act, you can condition rezone for that specific purpose.
Madam Chair, I just point out that in that packet, there are 3 potential motions that I reviewed. And it's obviously the choice of the planning board, which of those 3 or whatever else you may come up with. It's certainly your prerogative to do so. I would suggest that potential motion number 3 very cleanly articulates what Mr. Penpacker and Mr. Camoli were just referring to in terms of a change to commercial special zone, subject to the restriction that commercial property that the commercial use of this property would be restricted to a solar array, and that would eliminate the hypothetical that Mr. Pennypack alluded to of manufacturing buildings and so forth. So there's a lot here to wade through and think about, but I would just suggest if you want to be as clear can be, I think, assuming you agree with those ideas, and I can confirm, as Mr. Kamoli just said, that while the council hasn't voted on this or expressed its view on this, there was clearly articulation on a number of the council people at the public hearings that they wanted that restriction on there so that it couldn't be just any type of commercial operation. And Mr. Kamoli represented before the council also that the legal non-conforming pre-existing use of the gravel operation there would be explicitly abandoned by those actions, so that would go away as well. They wouldn't be able to reinstate a gravel pit again. So again, it's up to the planning board how they want to do, but I just thought I'd try to assist a little bit with what these proposed language, motion, suggestions that Mr. Lanfair came up with.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. So are there any other comments from the public regarding the rezoning of this parcel? Okay. Planning board, are we ready to make a motion, or shall we discuss? Okay. Okay. Well, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the planning board recommend to the town council that the rezoning of this particular parcel, lot 2, on Assessor's Plat 4 from RR, should be really RRF 80, should be the existing non-conforming zoning that exists there now, to commercial special, be subject to the restriction that the commercial use of this property would be restricted to that of the photovoltaic solar energy system use number 486.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, Mr. Holberg's comments and just what they mean from a legal perspective. If it were not for the fact that there was a legal pre-existing non-conforming use of the property, which means it was going on before there was zoning at all, that parcel is zoned RFR 80. So technically, from the literal reading of the zoning map, the current zone is RFR 80, subordinate to this pre-existing non-conforming use. So it technically is correct to say RFR 80, but it's also good to add your comments, Mr. Holberg, that you're now operating under a non-conforming legal pre-existing use.
Then I'll amend my motion to say from RFR 80/ the non-conforming existing use to commercial special.
Second.
You're okay with
Yeah,
it?
we have a motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Thank
passes.
you, members of the board.
Thank you.
Need a motion to the comprehensive plan future. That motion was covered, don't it?
That motion is covered zoning.
So I agree.
Jim, could you explain?
Can you explain that for a second? Yeah.
What the, your other two proposals, 1 and 2, would entail, what the difference is?
Yeah, the potential motion number 1 is a motion to amend the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. That's the reason why we're having this public hearing tonight. If this was purely a zoning change advisory opinion, we would not have to have a public hearing at this stage. The public hearing would be held with the town council on that, and then we would just have an advisory opinion. Because we are actually amending the future land use map of the comp plan to take it from residential to commercial, we have to have a public hearing on this change, and then we really have to do that first before we do the zoning.
But isn't that the council's job?
Oh, right, both of these are advisory opinions to the council. The council's job is to change both of those things, the future land use map and zoning.
Right, so what, and not to interrupt, but the statute requires that the council get the input of this board in the form of an advisory opinion on both the comprehensive plan amendment proposed and the zone change proposed. So,
So I'll entertain a motion regarding comprehensive plan map change.
So an amendment to the motion or a separate motion?
A separate
altogether?
motion. Separate motion.
I'm not comfortable.
Wait, you can just read number one.
I don't agree with it.
Oh, okay. So how can you, wait a minute, how can you support a zone change that is inconsistent with the current future?
I'm not
land?
saying I object to changing the comprehensive plan, I object to the verbiage.
Oh, you can
I
come
think
up
that
with
makes
your
it
own.
another one.
I'm not comfortable doing that.
Okay,
I'm just saying, I'm not making a motion.
okay.
So, okay.
I'm not at all disagreeing that the comprehensive plan needs to be changed.
All right.
I don't agree that it's to entice to expansion of the town's tax base.
Okay,
I've made it crystal clear that I think it's absolutely incomprehensible that the state sets our tax rate for us, so I'm surely not including that in any motion that I make.
fine.
And I appreciate the two solid developers that are here and the gift you're being given by the states. So I don't support that whatsoever.
So, is there a conflict then? Can we recommend to the town council to approve the zone change without changing our future land map?
Oh, no, I'm not saying to do that.
No, you cannot do that, but
I'm saying I'm not comfortable with the
if I understand
verbiage.
Mr. Holbert's concern about the suggested verbiage, I believe you can just eliminate goal at 1 from motion number 1 and confine the motion to objective ED3, which is target specific types of businesses based on Hopkinton's quality of life, local advantages, balanced with business requirements and impact on the environment, and the rest of it that follows as well. Jim, am I correct in that would be sufficient?
Yeah, you can just read the first paragraph if you don't want to.
That's exactly where I was heading
Sure.
until I started reading all of it.
Okay.
But now I feel like I'm,
No, you can make your own motion. I just.
no, I know that, but I feel like I'm double talking.
No,
Oh, no.
Mr. Holbert, I suggest that you and the planning board just take a moment, you can, I think if I
I've
understand.
already taken more than a moment to read all this, and that's why I completely agreed with your potential motion number 3, because it was clear, concise, direct, and to the point.
And that's just half the battle, but as Jim said, you can eliminate from potential motion number 1 or 2, whatever the verbiage you're not comfortable with. And it sounded to me like that was primarily the goal at number 1. But if there's other stuff, you don't need to add either. As long as the first paragraph is there, I think that's probably okay.
I think the third objective that says target specific types of business based on quality of life, locations, advantages, balance with business requirements, and the impacts on the environment. I think with regards to this project, that's a yes. Mrs. Powell.
I just wonder, this is an open hearing on the zoning map or future land use map changes. Could you just read, I don't think we understand what you're talking about. Can you read what Mr. Holberton, can you read the whole thing and then show us the part you're disagreeing with? Since it's a public hearing, I guess we can have an opinion.
To change the comprehensive plan, you have to go into the parts of the comprehensive plan that back up why you want to change the plan.
Correct.
And the one I'm objecting to is that it's to provide for the expansion of the town's tax base by encouraging development of new and existing light and/or heavy industrial and office and commercial businesses.
Okay.
I don't think that applies here. I don't agree that that's a reason to change the comprehensive plan.
I would agree with that. What is the other portion as well?
Well, there's
Right, we don't know what they are. Could you read
well,
those?
we're deciding those right now. We don't know. That's what we were just discussing.
Right, but we don't know what you're talking about. If you could just read them and then discuss them, I'd appreciate
Well,
it.
we're talking about making an amendment to the comprehensive plan,
Correct,
and you have to have basis to do that.
correct.
And we're deciding amongst ourselves if the verbiage that exists in our comprehensive plan we agree with. So we'll tell you that in a second.
Okay, but it's a public hearing, right?
He hasn't gotten the discussion point yet.
I know.
I'm good to look at this, I'm comfortable with all the rest of it.
Go for it.
I'll make a motion, you want me to just the child thing or this?
But you have to be careful, Mr. O'Gorman, because it says, if you actually read it, so the first part of the motion would be that we recommend the town council to change the conservation plan, future land use classification on Assessor's Plat 4 from residential to commercial, and recommend as a finding in support of this recommendation that this change would be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, not especially with the economic development goal, most especially with the economic goal of expanding the tax base without any adverse environmental impacts. And that, I think, would contradict what Tom had just said.
Yeah, but that's fine if you guys want to make that motion. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
So, can we go that one out, do we change?
Why don't you make your motion and whatever you would like to do?
Well, now I'm not comfortable making that motion, now I'm not sure, because I don't know if it applies, I don't want to do something without any basis.
Well, it is increasing the tax base. It's not increasing it substantially, but it is that there is tax implications with regard to putting the solar array.
So can I just take out substantially, can I just say
You
that?
may do whatever you would like to do.
So, I'm going to move that the planning board recommends to the town council that it change the comprehensive plan future land use map classification on Assessor's Plat 4, Lot 25, from residential.
Lot 2.
Lot 2, from residential to commercial, and recommend as a finding in support of the recommendation that this change would be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, most especially with the economic development goal of expanding the tax base without any adverse environmental impacts or adverse impacts on neighboring land and real estate values. The underlying support for this motion is contained in the economic development element of the comprehensive plan, specifically goal 1, to provide for the expansion of the town's tax base by encouraging development of new and existing light or heavy industrial, office, commercial businesses. Objective 3, target specific types of businesses based on Hopkinton's quality of life and locational advantages, balanced with businesses' requirements and impacts on the environment. These goals and objectives are consistent with the established by the General Assembly to guide state and municipal agencies, such as to promote orderly growth and development that recognizes the natural characteristics of the land, its suitably for use, the availability of existing and proposed public /and/or private services and facilities, and is consistent with available resources and the need to protect public health, including drinking water supply, drinking water safety, and environmental quality.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
You can second it.
I can second it?
Yes, you
Okay.
can.
I'll second the motion. So I have a motion, I have a second.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. And opposed?
Aye.
So 2 in favor, 1 opposed?
It's fine, it's, again, it's an advisory opinion to the council, so that's the way we'll go.
Okay, so the motion carries.
Did you want to do motion 3, just to affirmatively,
We've already done motion 3.
did 3 and 2?
Is it,
3 is
We
better than 2?
we did,
There's
Potential
two
motion
recommendations,
one.
there's two advisory opinions. One is to change the zone to the commercial special, and the second is to amend the comprehensive.
we already did the zone. We just did them out of order.
With that understanding, that's fine.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. So with that, we can close our public hearing. So the hearing is closed, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is to open a second public hearing on a zoning map and future land use map amendment. I will give folks a second. All right, in light of the fact that we've had to start late, again, I'd like to open the public hearing on zoning map and future land use map amendment. It's an advisory opinion to town council, request for zoning future land use map amendments of the photovoltaic solar energy system, AP4, Lot 25, Main Street. And this is for the RI Solar Renewable Energy LLC, and Maxon Hill LLC is our applicant. The planning board may vote to advise the town council on a zoning map and future land use map changes after the close of this public hearing.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ben Nacarado for the applicant. This is an application for two things. One is to change the zone on map 4, lot 25, from RFR 80 to commercial special. And also to change the comprehensive plan, which designates this property as mixed-use village, to commercial special. And let me say right from the outset, we have a number of witnesses, but keep in mind that we are seeking only a use of zoning code 486 and no other commercial use. And we would stipulate that this property, if approved, as petitioned for, would be used for solar energy only. We are interested in no other commercial use. Also, I'm offering to you a sort of sunset provision in that if the property is not used for solar energy for 1 year or more, that it would revert back to its previous zoning. And also, at the end of 35 years, which is the contract provision, that you would have the option as a town to petition this property back into a residential or mixed use, if you have that designation for a mixed use village use. We are interested only in solar only, and want it limited to that particular purpose. So rather than listening to me tell you about the project, I'd like to, since we're starting a little bit late, I'd like to get right into the testimony with Mr. Russo from Dupree Engineering.
Just a point before we begin, this is not development plan review tonight.
No, it is not.
Okay.
This is for a recommendation to the council on both aspects.
On the zone
On
change,
the zone
not
change
a
and
comprehensive
the
plan.
comprehensive plan change, yes. Dave? For the record, Dave, your name and address.
For the record, David Russo, professional engineer with Dupree Engineering, 2 Stafford Court, Rhode Island. So the property is AP4, lot 25. The owner is Maxon Hill LLC. The site is approximately 138 acres. It has frontage on both Main Street and Maxon Hill Road. Majority of the site is wooded with some cleared meadowlands that you can see on the aerial photography. There's an existing driveway located off of Main Street, and there's also an existing dirt entranceway off of Maxon Hill. Dupree Engineering was responsible for the state permitting that we've obtained for the site. We've been on the site, our wetland biologists flagged all the wetlands on the site. We've also completed soil evaluations on the site. The site is proposing a 11.75 megawatt system. The site, as designed, meets all the commercial zoning code regulations and all the setbacks within that. We submitted to DEM and recently received an insignificant alteration permit for the site. The site watershed generally flows from the east side of the site towards the west. There's two stream systems with culverts that pass under the state roadway. We're proposing to have multiple locations of infiltration basins on the site, mostly located at the lower elevations. And the reason we're doing that is to try to limit the earthwork that's needed. So we're trying to hold the existing topography on the site as best as possible, and where the low points naturally occur, we create these infiltration areas which will capture the storm water, allow it to infiltrate and recharge the groundwater, and then discharge out pipes towards the wetland areas. The systems are all designed to control a 100-year storm event, or up to a 100-year storm event. They were all reviewed by DEM. The DEM process for wetlands took about 3 or 4 months. We actually went in and met with DEM on 2 occasions to discuss the project. Their wetland biologist from DEM walked the site, inspected all the flags on the site. There was a few small adjustments they wanted us to make. So that was a back and forth process that took quite a bit of time to obtain that permit. The panels themselves, after installation, there'll be grass located underneath all the panels. DEM requires us to prepare an operation and maintenance manual, which is for all the stormwater systems that will be on the site. Those will be privately maintained by the owners. The operation and maintenance manual discusses how the infiltration basins should be maintained, the length of time that they should be inspected and maintained. And that again was also reviewed and approved by DEM. And the last report that DEM required was a soil erosion control report and plan, which addresses mostly during construction when they cut the vegetation on the site and they start doing that earthwork. We have temporary swales and temporary sediment basins in place. That is, we put it on paper, but with any construction site during construction, you have to monitor how it's going, and you may have to relocate those or shift them, or you may have to introduce some other measures for soil erosion. The contractors are required to inspect that on a daily basis and after rain events. They're also required to fill out a log and keep that log on site. When DEM does an inspection during construction, they go out to the site and they ask to see those, so the contractors are required to do that as part of it. The last state permit that was required was we were required to obtain a physical alteration permit from the state for the state roadway. We're proposing 3 driveway access points on this site. There's 2 driveway access points off of Main Street. There's one located towards the north, which is actually an existing entrance that we're going to use as the main entrance to the site. And there's another entrance that we're proposing off of Main Street to access the lower solar fields in the southern area. Those were both entrances were reviewed by DOT. Paul Bannon from R&D Engineering prepared a traffic study that showed that the traffic after the field is constructed will have no impact. During construction, the construction vehicles will access the site off of Main Street. After construction, the traffic should really be limited to pickup truck, landscape maintenance vehicle to inspect the site, so there'll be no really heavy traffic from the site at all. We've also proposed an access way off Maxon Hill Road. That access point is an existing dirt access point. We're proposing to improve that, to improve access to the site for maintenance only. So during construction, we're proposing to use the 2 main entrances off of the Main Street area. DOT, that permit also took 3 to 4 months from DOT, and back and forth with them on some of their comments. We had an additional entrance on Main Street that DOT felt was not safe, and we actually eliminated that during the process. And DOT's review, part of their review is that we have to show that we're not increasing stormwater flow or volume to the state right away. And our stormwater report showed that during the review process. So we actually just got that permit approval earlier this week. So we have both our DM and DOT permits, which are both state permits that were required to construct this project.
Dave, could you point out the wetland area on the site, please?
There's multiple wetland areas on the site. There's a system on the southern end of the site, and then there's a few isolated wetlands that are scattered, and then there's one larger wetland that's contiguous. There's a stream system here, and then the two main stream systems that cross the state highway located there. So the watershed goes to those main culverts. Those were our analysis points when we were doing our drainage design.
And you're staying away from those, you're not doing any construction in
That's
the
correct.
wetland area?
We're not proposing any construction or disturbance to any of the wetland flagged areas or the buffers. The buffers are 50-foot buffers for the contiguous wetlands, and then 100-foot buffers from the stream system. And then the isolated wetlands, there's no buffer requirement, but we're not going in any of those areas.
And would you point out the areas where you're constructing solar panels?
The areas where we're constructing solar panels shown on the plan. This sheet, they're light gray. Due to the site and how the wetlands are laid out, it's different segments of solar areas. There's a solar array here, there's one here, and there's two small ones here. And there's one large system that's contiguous on the eastern side of the site.
Now, on the topo on this property, Dave, it's actually higher than Route 3?
Yes, it gradually, from Route 3, gradually slopes upward towards Maxon Hill Road. There's a small watershed near this isolated wetland that goes towards Maxon Hill Road, but other than that, it all flows towards the west.
And what is the topography in this area of construction in relationship to Route 3?
That area, as you're driving down Route 3, there's a berm, I'll call it. It's a lot higher in that area, and then there's some existing vegetation along the top of that area. We're proposing to maintain as much of that as we can. DOT did have a concern about that existing driveway access. They want us to cut out some of the vegetation in that area to improve the sightline. It's acceptable, but they want to see that improvement, so we're going to do that during construction.
Your landscape architect is here and I can testify that what you're doing in the way of landscaping in that area.
Yes, we go ahead and speak to that.
How about in this area where an array is constructed, what's the relationship topography between that and Route 3?
It's very similar to the northern section where it's a little more elevated and there's a berm, I'll call it.
And again, your landscape architect will testify as to what he's doing in that area.
Correct.
The other areas of construction are inland, so relating to the parcel. This area and this area.
Correct.
And they are accessed by a road that is not a road, it's really a driveway.
Yep.
From Route 3. That's been approved by DOT.
Yeah, so we're proposing access roadways through the driveways more or less through the site so they can access the equipment for maintenance. Those access roadways are being proposed in these plans as a layer of crushed stone at the top. When we design those for DEM requires us to analyze those as fully paved roads. So our analysis is conservative in that manner, since they're not going to be paved, so the runoff's actually less than we designed.
And in the larger area of panels, that is going to be accessed off of Maxon Hill Road.
Yep.
By, again, the same type of driveway that goes into the site.
That's
for
right.
And that's only for maintenance purposes, is that right?
It's only for periodic maintenance after construction so that they can access, mow the fields, make sure the vegetation's not above the panels, and check the equipment.
Now, the site is constructed, or shown there's a fence around the properties. Is there not? Yeah.
That's correct.
What type of fence is he proposing?
We've actually added a plan here to try to make it really clear on what type of fence is going and where each type of fence is going, because it can get lost in all the line work on our plans. So there's 3 separate types of fence that we're proposing on the site. The red that's shown on here, we're proposing a black chain link fence, 6 feet in height. It'll be 6 inches off the ground for critters. So we're proposing a black chain link fence along basically these residential properties along the east, this whole stretch, and then one stretch along this abutting residential property. And then we're also proposing a silver chain link fence, which is the purple line throughout the site. And then lastly, we're proposing panel fencing along this southern boundary between these residents and the solar panels. So there's 3 different fences. They're all going to be 6 feet in height and given a gap on the bottom of it.
Dave, you said that the site is 137 acres.
It's 138.
138. And how many acres is comprised of wetlands of that 138 acres?
The site has 138 acres. As designed, we're preserving approximately 70 acres of the site, which is a little over 50%. It's about 51% of the site. In addition to the wetland areas that we're not touching, there's some other wooded areas that we're going to leave undisturbed. So it's a little over 50% of the total site that's being preserved.
Now, some of the site has some cleared fields.
Mm-hmm.
How much in the way of acreage is there cleared fields?
There's approximately 10 acres of cleared field area, which can be seen easiest on the aerial. Where there's existing meadow areas that have been maintained historically on the site.
It looks like a portion right close to Route 3, is that right?
Yep, there's 2 meadows along Route 3, and then there's 2 inner areas of meadows.
The rest is wooded?
Correct.
Yeah. How would you classify that woodland area?
I'm not a landscape architect, but I classify it as young forest. I don't think it's virgin forest. It's definitely been disturbed in the past from the looks of it.
And actually, to construct the solar panel, you've got to remove the trees that are there. Is that correct?
To create an efficient system, the shading is a concern, so they have to remove the trees.
How many trees would you be removing?
I will leave that to Kevin Alverson.
And that's your landscape architect?
That's that question.
All right. Anything else about the physical characteristics of the site you'd like to point out to the planning?
I think that's a good summary of what we were involved in for the state permitting on the site.
The state permitting, the insignificant alteration permit that you've received. I mean, what do you have to do for that permit?
The permit has multiple requirements. As I stated, we have to flag all the wetlands on the site. We have to do a full hydrology analysis of the area. We have to design all the stormwater systems to meet their criteria. And to design those properly, we need to do test holes across the site in these areas. And then we need to prepare the plans, the stormwater management report, the operation and maintenance manual, soil erosion control, and submit that to DM for review.
The whole idea is to keep your water on the site and runoff on the site.
And recharge the groundwater.
And recharge it,
yeah. And the stormwater from this site, it's going to be clean runoff. You don't have roads and sediment. They're not going to be sanding these roads, so there's no sediment. Obviously there's no septics out here, so the stormwater from this is really just off the panels onto grass. So it's going to get filtration on the grass, and then also with the infiltration systems.
And you've furnished all that information to DEM for your insignificant alteration.
That's correct. I reviewed and approved it all.
Do you have a board showing your infiltration systems on the site?
We have some, on the grading plans, you can see some of them. So this is they're not, typically you think of an infiltration system or a detention basin, you think you have to dig out, or you're digging out the land to create it. The way that we design these to try to limit that is we end up creating a small berm to hold back the water, and then allow the water to infiltrate naturally, and then there's some pipes that allow the water to meter out over time.
And how many do you have on, of those do you have on site?
There's approximately 11 of them, varying in sizes. You know, the reason we have that many is, again, we're trying to keep the natural flow where it goes today. We try to maintain that, which is one of the requirements DEM. You know, that's what they want to see in hydrology analysis.
And is all your runoff contained on site?
It is all contained on site.
And this is not the first solar project you've designed, I take it?
No, it's not.
And the familiar solar needs no septic system,
Correct.
no water source.
Correct.
What
There's
other-
no lighting.
No lighting.
There's no signage. Besides, there's obviously safety signage on the fence itself.
Are you familiar on how high these solar panels are?
These, I believe, are 3 feet off the ground on the front lip, and they can range up to 9 feet approximately on the back end of the solar panel.
And they're mounted, they're stationary, they do not rotate,
Correct.
turn.
They're ground mounted and they're fixed. They don't follow or track the sun.
Not any further questions, is there? If the board has any questions? Yes, absolutely.
So you mentioned that during the construction process, access is going to be through a grid.
Correct.
Is that a stipulation, or is that your thinking?
That's what we're proposing.
As in, shall be?
We're proposing to have construction access off that road.
Okay, I'll answer for you. So that'll be a shall be. So there's not going to be any access for construction from the Maximville Road area. Would that be correct?
And we're good with that statement.
Okay, good. So at the end, when the project has been completed, you do have an access to Maximville Road. Is that access secured? Does the fence, is it secured?
It would be. It would have a double gate. It'd be secured. There'd be a Knox lock on it for the
Emergency access?
for emergency access. Correct. Yep.
And just to be clear, of the approximately 138 acres that's total, approximately 50% being preserved, leading you to believe that 50% is going to be altered, yes?
That'd be correct statement. But I mean, I guess if you're going to consider the metal layers being disturbed. But
Well,
that's
they are going to be disturbed, yes, even though they might already be
correct.
naturally cleared. Okay.
I don't even know where to begin. Hi, guys. Good to see you again, kind of, not really. So, we're here tonight to give an advisory opinion on a zone change that would allow this. I take that very seriously. To do that correctly, I have to understand your project from start to finish. I'll have to compliment you via the level and effort and obviously money that you put into this presentation is staggering. So that kind of sends up a red flag to me. Sounds like it's kind of a done deal. So are we here spinning our wheels, wasting our time? Is this a done deal?
I don't know who it's done by, but
Well,
nothing I know about.
Well, I mean, you've actually got your DEM permitting in place already. This is unheard of.
Yeah, I know it is, but to do a good project, I mean, we realize this project's got size to it. And it's got 138 acres, and it's the former Dawes Farm, it was a horse farm. We realized to do something to convince you to make a favorable recommendation, we gotta put some effort into it. So we have, you know, I think we learned a lot going through the last one with Pelican's property. and we're trying to answer everything that we possibly can. We learn from dealing with Crossman as your expert on development and plan review, certain things. We have literally tried to cover everything in the initial presentation and leave nothing to question, you know.
Well, that's abundantly obvious.
Yeah. So we really want to do a good project, and I think we have a good project, and we want to convey that to you. But I wish I could say it's a done deal. It's not a done deal anymore.
Well,
We got a long road to
This
go.
isn't my first rodeo.
Yeah.
I got appointed to the planning board when I was 28 years old. I'm going to be 62 in a couple of months. So I thought I'd seen everything, but I have never seen this level of expertise put up front before.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So I like your explanation, Vin, and I'm going to go with that. So I received this package a couple days ago, and I took a quick glance at it, and I actually laughed. I looked at your design and the insane amount of wetlands that are on the property, and understood right off the bat why the property hasn't been developed yet. It's almost impossible. If it's zoned mixed use, there's very few uses or economically viable uses that the property could be used for. So I tried to have a little bit more of an open mind, because when I initially looked at the first plan, I didn't like it at all, couldn't support it. Then I started to get into the book here, and I don't know, is who prepared this here tonight?
Nicole, she's here.
Unbelievable. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Overwhelming. You all do realize we're volunteers, right? I mean, seriously, we're homeowners, we're residents, and we like to dedicate our time because we like this stuff. But man, this is a lot of stuff to go through in a day or two. So, again, I'm not whining, but I had seen this stuff before, so I got through the smoke and mirrors and got down to some of the things that were concerns to me. And the main one, it's a big picture thing. I don't know how I feel about clear-cutting almost 60 acres around 70 acres of wetland. I hope you don't keep referring to the wetlands as we're preserving it, because you're not preserving it. You're working around it, and the laws and regulations that exist don't allow you to go in. So you can't take credit for preserving it. I really, really want to support this, but with the 2 or 3 hours that I put into this, there's just too many red flags. Joe Lovato, excellent write-up in here. And, you know, we all go back with Joe a long ways, and we take what he says very seriously. And I just don't see it as that consistent with the comprehensive plan. I understand how you can take verbiage out of the comprehensive plan and apply it to this. Again, you know, I hate to keep hopping on the tax advantages to the town over this. And obviously, the taxes that are being produced now on it are minimal, and the taxes that would be produced from this solar array are going to be substantially more. But we're using land near 95 and near the exits, and I just don't think it's the best use of the land. Although, the other side of me is saying it's half wetlands, and what else are you going to do with it? So I'm rambling now, I know. But you guys need to convince me, because I'm just not convinced. And we can get into each and every one of these, you know, just mind-bogglingly wordy things going on and on and on. Sage Development, some of their reporting in here was very helpful and very instrumental, but boy, I'm just not comfortable with it. You know for a fact we weren't really comfortable with clear-cutting the 50 acres on the other property that you got approval on. And that had very few wetlands on it. This one just smacks to me as greed. You know, you're zinging around all the wetlands, sticking in as many as you can. And, you know, for me to recommend to the council a zone change, it's got to do a few basic things. It's got to prove to me that there's some economic viability to it, other than to the developers' pockets and the solar array manufacturers' pockets, you gotta prove to me that it's not gonna be detrimental to those poor people that live on Maxon Hill Road and are gonna stare at this thing for the rest of their friggin' lives. I'm not happy, and I don't like it.
I'd like to add to Mr. Holberton, and that a wetland isn't just the part that gets sectioned off. I mean, it's a system. So you're going to be cutting all these trees, and you really are going to be changing this environmental packet. And I agree with Mr. Holberton. I have a problem with how much wetlands there is to how much solar panel. And I think it's just really going to change it. And so I'm not convinced, I know your landscaper hasn't spoken yet, but I'm not convinced that clear cutting the trees, and I was a tree person last time, so that's okay, but clear cutting these trees isn't going to adversely impact those wetlands. And, because it will, I believe it that it will. And so right now I'm not convinced on the plans. And DEM is just saying you're following the rules. Okay.
I mean, I don't think DM would have issued the permit if they felt we were going to be detrimental to a wetland. I mean, and really a lot goes into the wetlands permit. We don't submit it, and they give it back to us the next week. So, I mean, they walked the site, they know what we're proposing to do.
You'll forgive us if we're not gonna hang our hat on DEM caring about the wetlands in Hopkinton. You know, I'm not.
I do a lot of wetland applications, and they're not easy. They're not one stop. You send it in, you get it next week. They put in a lot of effort.
I understand. I get it. But you're coming to this planning board asking us to approve a zone change for you to do this commercial thing within these wetlands. So if you had the ability today to do these solar panels and it was zoned appropriately, fine. You go to DEM and you get your permits. But you're asking us to change the zone to allow you to do this on this piece of property that has all these wetlands. And so that's my hesitancy, basically.
My hesitancy is, this is new. You know, we know these projects have gone up around New England a bit, but common sense tells me that we really don't know what clear cutting 50 acres around these assorted wetlands is going to do to it. And again, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but you're not going to find a person on this board, in this room, in this town, that believes any more in property owners' rights than I do. So I believe whoever owns this property, now whether you do it or Roy still owns it, you have a right to the use of the property. And if the rules and regulations say you can do this, wonderful, knock yourselves out, do it. But I say those rules and regulations need to be changed if they allow this kind of project. It's not just a clear cutting issue. We don't know. Yeah, I mean, can we go back to your fence map?
Sure.
We don't know what this is going to do to the environment. I am the farthest thing from a tree hugger. I own an architectural woodworking company. If it wasn't for wood, I wouldn't be in business. I believe in cutting down trees, but not for just financial gain. You know, look at your perimeter of your fencing. If that's 138 acres total, you're fencing in 80, 90 acres.
And that was part of the review with DM. We actually modified the fence with them in their office.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And again, I'm no animal lover that much either, but where do those animals go? And they're going to go into the neighborhoods and stuff. I mean, we've never done things like this. This is a rural community. All these animals going to end up out in Route 3 getting hit by the cars, you know? And I'm not a champion of the animal. I'm just saying, it's our job to foresee problems and make sure they don't happen. And I respect your economic development wants here and needs and desires, and I'm not against solar at all, except for the taxation part of it. Do we need to go into that?
Yeah, we don't.
We can do that later. Yeah.
So I want to support it, but, you know, a day and a half, I work full time. I spent an hour on this yesterday and 2 hours on it today. I don't know if I can make a qualified opinion to the council on it. And I don't want to make a negative one and then go through this and find out I wished I hadn't. Or vice versa. I don't want to make a positive one and then go through this and go, crap, I wish I had.
You know, if I could,
Sure.
any development on this parcel is going to involve tree cutting. And whether you put residents there or mixed-use village or whatever you do there is going to involve cutting those trees. You know, if it can be done, and it can be done by the owner today, you can go out and cut it. No, nothing to prevent them from doing that. I mean, the big picture here is solar, clean energy. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And in order to get to that point, we've got to cut down the trees. You know, it's simple as that. If you can cut them down to build a house, we should be able to cut them down to put solar there, which is clean energy.
With all due respect, sir, he's not going to cut down 70 acres or whatever he's going to cut down to build his house. And so,
To do what the future land use map calls for this property, mixed-use village, which you don't even have a zoning classification for. It got denied 12 years ago and has never been resurrected. But to do what that future land use map says this property should be used for, you got to cut down the trees.
Yes, Vincent, but you will also know that under our regulation, we would have extensive control over the plantings and landscaping that would go with such a project. Contrasted to all of the solar applications, you can't just put a planting area in the middle of the project. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
You've got to clear cut everything.
You
I think that's part of what's got us, you know, a little bit, you know, concerned, because normally we have that kind of control, and we exert that kind of control. We don't have that latitude when it comes to solar projects.
Well,
A little bit disconcerting.
yeah, I get that. I understand that, but, you know, but we are willing to work with you on the landscaping aspect. We are proposing to plant some 800, how many trees? A lot of trees. To shield this from the view of neighbors. And, you know, you're right, we can't go interior and create shade, that's a problem for us. But we're doing something that somebody using it for mixed-use village or for residential, for a comp permit, doesn't have to do. You can't make them do, he can go cut this property, he can go clear cut it tomorrow.
Yes, but if you were coming to us under that scenario and had not clear cut it previously, we would have controls.
You would. But, like you say, previously, you can clear cut it ahead of time.
You can go up and do
Go up and exit 3, and you see them, there's solar panels right on Route 95, clear cut to the setback line. You know, we're not trying to do that at all. We are more than willing.
You've learned.
Yeah, well, hopefully we learn as we go along.
but exit 3 is not our town.
Right, it's Richmond, yeah.
So we're here talking about Hopkinton. So I get it. So,
Well, you know, we should probably pause, because it sounds like you have some serious concerns. You both do.
Yeah.
I applaud you for that. So, structurally, where do you want to go with that? These folks have a certain expectation this evening.
they do.
I am in the same boat that Tom is in. I work a lot of hours. I'd like to think I put my time in reviewing this application, but the amount of information is a little bit on the overwhelming side, given the fact that, you know, we've got it in the appropriate amount of time. That's still just a few days ago.
And I appreciate the amount of effort you put in.
Thank you.
It's just, it's a bit much to ask a volunteer board to read it over in a couple of days and make an informed decision.
So, if you want to go?
Tonight, I'm not prepared to, I would not feel comfortable giving a positive view to town council.
Want to hear the experts? And we certainly have please correct me if I'm mistaken, we certainly have the option of hearing them out.
Yes.
Was there a hearing?
Let's-
Formulating a decision and,
We're all here, so I would prefer to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Feel free. Would you like to call your next,
Before you leave, David, let me ask you one more question. Dave, what type of cutting or would you need in order to place the the panels on the site. What am I asking for? Cutting into the land on the site to locate the.
Oh, great.
Yes, thanks.
They said in the presentation, we're not trying to hold the existing contours as best as possible. Obviously, when you start doing earthwork, cutting the trees, moving the stumps, there will be some earthwork, and we want to hold the existing contours to kind of hold where the existing stormwater goes today. We don't try to avoid altering where the stormwater goes, because part of the DM review is you need to maintain that water that goes to these wetlands and show a reduction. So that's what we've done on this. We didn't alter any of the watersheds. The water's still going where it is today. We're just providing additional treatment and holding back some of that water so that we don't increase the flow to the wetland areas.
So physically, where you're removing vegetation, trees, you'll remove the stumps from the property per rule. And what happens to the topsoil? You're going to retain the topsoil on site?
And sometimes the stumps, they'll grind the stumps and then use it as temporary soil erosion control.
You're going to grind the stumps on site?
If they want to use it for temporary erosion control.
That's allowed?
Temporary erosion control, you can use wood chips. It depends on the season that they build in. If it's during the season when you can grow grass, you're much better off doing the grass. But you can use wood chips if you're in a...
Are you referring to the act of grinding?
Yeah.
It's the act of grinding, not the product. Question is, can we grind stumps on the site?
Is that not allowed in the town?
It's a volatile topic.
Well, you can't bury them anymore.
Well, I know that, we're not proposing to bury them.
You have to do something with them.
Other sites we have used them as temporary soil erosion control. Ideally, you'd be able to plant grass and you don't have to run into that situation. So hopefully that's not needed.
Does your operation and maintenance package address grinding?
The soil erosion,
Not the product, the activity.
the operation and maintenance manual is specific to the stormwater controls.
So the answer would be no. You still have to address that, so we're good.
And the other aspect of the insignificant alteration is the RIPD's permit, which is embodied in your insignificant alteration permit.
Yeah, the RIPD's permit is part of the review when you get the insignificant alteration permit, so it's a separate review that reviews that aspect.
What is RIPD stand for?
It's Rhode Island Pollution Prevention is what the department, and they're more, typically you get those if you're not near a wetland, and you're just doing general construction, so they review it as the general construction end of it. Since this one has wetlands, they review it for the wetlands and the general construction aspect.
May I ask you a question? Have you ever done something like this by so much wetlands and such contours and all of this?
We have. We're actually building a site in Cranston now that has different geometry of the wetlands. It's not segmented as much as this, but we are in the process.
So how does Cranston look like versus this?
Cranston doesn't have as much wetland in the middle of the site, but there are a lot of wetlands surrounding the site. There's a large stream system along one side.
So you haven't done something exactly where you've had wetlands penetrating into where you're doing this?
Not on this. Yeah.
Not on this,
It is a unique site.
It is.
In the shape of the site, and the wetlands shape of the wetlands.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm all set.
Vin, one of the reasons I went off on my tangent was so you guys wouldn't waste time and you could address the concerns you know I have. I'm not speaking for them. So I know that some of my concerns are going to be dealt with by other.
Okay. Any more questions of Dave?
I don't know, I never know which witness to ask the questions of, so.
What do you got, Dave?
Well, I've jotted down a few things, so why don't I just kind of go. I'll start by agreeing with the gist of what Mr. Holberg was saying. Why would I recommend this to the town council? This is the question. This is evidence of the plan. I'm not seeing a strong argument as to how this plan matches up with the town's comprehensive plan. That's the part that I'm uneasy with in terms of making a recommendation. And you've heard me all night. I'm kind of pro open space, so I'm not really a strong ally anyway. But I would also, I guess my next question, one question I have is, you've elected to put a panel fence along the back of those residences. Is that a result of working with the property owners along that segment? What's the decision to use a panel fence there as opposed to the chain link?
Well, the landscape architect can speak to that when he does his presentation.
I can hold that then. The next is regarding, I guess, regarding green energy in general. Solar is great on a landfill, on a rooftop, covering the parking lot. Cutting out forests to create solar and calling it green energy is something of a misnomer. I don't necessarily agree with that. That's my soapbox. I've oftentimes on this board, perhaps, and certainly in front of town council, referred to this level of solar panels as pavement, because it effectively covers the land and it's unusable after that. So it's not the same thing. And I know I don't want to bring Richmond too much into this, but I do drive by John and Cindy's Richmond project every day, and I know they graded that land. It's quite a disturbance. I know that we don't grade land here, so hopefully that'll be fine. And I wanted to address the village aspect of it. If this were a village, so that was all my negative stuff. And I guess so my questions, probably more positive things. If this were a village, a mixed-use village, I don't know what that looks like. I'm presuming shops, restaurants, maybe Old Mystic Village, maybe something a little bit more spread out than that. Given the topography, given where the wetlands are, that village would live on Maxon Hill Road. It wouldn't be on Main Street. They could put a sign on Main Street. They might be able to have a restaurant in the corner there. That, all the development that's going to be here is, if it involves any kind of traffic, will be on Maxon Hill Road. So, bearing that in mind, this will bring no traffic. Will bring minimal noise. So, that's something in favor of that. And I guess the last thing I have is just another question. One of the pictures here shows probably several hundred feet of stone walls. What's the plan for the existing stone walls on the property?
If there's any existing stone walls on the property, they'll dismantle them and use them on site. You know, if we don't have a stone wall, typically towns or cities want stone wall recreation plans. That's something we can add in with the landscape plans.
Thank you. I was just conferring with the wheelchair I'm just sitting in today. So, so if any members of the public would have questions for your expert, can we open it up now so that we have time?
Yeah,
so that there's.
Yeah, all right.
Mrs. Capalvo, that I was looking at you, ma'am.
I
So.
know, I'm trying to be quiet for a while, I think. I'm going to attempt to be quiet for a while.
So you're going to hold your
But
questions?
I do appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sir, thank you.
Thank you. Ralph, I'm Science Guy at Renewable Energy around, sole member and manager, and co-developer of this project with Mr. Del Carrier, and ultimately I will be the system operator co-owner with John Hancock of this property. It's a very similar setup as the previous presentation we did, and we'll keep my comments brief because we have many experts and they can speak to the real details and the real insights that you see in this project. All I would like to say is I believe we've demonstrated our openness to collaborate with this board and this town to achieve what the board would like to achieve and what we would like to achieve. And that still stands. And I think that through a lot of hard work, we ended up there last time. And I do appreciate the comments that the robust nature of the information that we provided and that this is a volunteer board. And I sit on a lot of volunteer boards myself, so I do have a great appreciation for that. I do embrace the system we used last time. We brought in an expert from Crossman Engineering. That still would, I think, would be a helpful tool for the board to feel comfortable, and we would help and participate as we did last time. But that, I thought that was a very constructive process. And as Mr. Nacarado said, we chose to follow what we learned from the last process, and we didn't come in here to try and show how smart we are. We just learned, and we did make the investment of time and financial resources to come in very prepared. So we would leave very few unopened questions, if any. And I say if any because we can't think of anything. Everything in each project is unique. We learned a lot from the last project, but this one is different. So I just want to give the message that we're here to collaborate and not try and force a particular strategy or structure down. To do a project like this, we certainly need to achieve certain investment goals to make it happen. But I think those investment goals can be consistent with what this town would like to achieve also. So the message is we're here to collaborate with you folks.
Ralph, as you mentioned, you're a co-developer of the property with Rhode Island Solar.
Yeah.
And how is this program that you're operating under different from the various small programs that, or small proposals that are before the board are approved or are in commercial zones?
So this project falls under the municipal net metering category, where we build larger scale projects, and the benefits of those projects are geared to assist municipalities in offsetting their electricity benefit. These are more scale projects. The renewable energy growth program are smaller projects where the energy is typically sold to National Grid, and National Grid is the ultimate direct consumer. And in this particular program, the indirect consumer is a municipality or eligible counterparty, and the eligible counterparties have been brought in. They were originally just municipal and state counterparties, now they're federal government, nonprofits, hospitals, and private education. It's been extended to now.
Now, does National Grid pay you for the energy that you put back into the grid for them?
They do not.
How do they compensate you?
They give us what's referred to as electricity credits, and we take those electricity credits and we allocate them to an eligible counterparty's electricity bill, and then we have a payment sharing agreement with that counterparty.
And can the town benefit from that type of arrangement?
Yes, every municipality can, including the town of Hopkinton.
And how would Hopkinton benefit?
They would measure their load, we do a system sizing and allocate credits to their bills, and we provide a discount on those credits.
And the discount could be how much?
20% was the last proposal that I made when I see it previously.
Okay, so the town, if the town had an energy bill of $100,000, by participating in this program with you, their bill could be reduced to $80,000.
That's correct.
Just for example.
Yes.
Now, any other benefit to the town or to the residents?
We certainly, as mentioned, the project will provide for incremental taxes based on the current tax rate. And that would certainly be an indirect benefit to the residents, direct to the town, and indirect to the residents, the incremental taxes. The non-financial benefit is the green footprint. I certainly have an appreciation for the comments on cutting trees and how that is not green. I'm challenged with that question each and every time that I stand before a podium. And we have an expert that will come up tonight and speak to that, the carbon footprint that the system embraces versus losing the trees is a multiple increment to the environment.
By state law, the project is taxed, but at the existing tax, it remains the same, and you are assessed a $5,000 per megawatt, is it, for the remainder?
Yeah, the statewide ordinance is assessed at $5,000 per megawatt on the tangible property. But it does not address the real property, it's just for the tangible property.
So if you're paying, if the owner is paying $10,000 now, for example, the tax would continue to be $10,000 on the real estate, and then if this is 11.75 megawatts,
It's $57,000.
yeah, in addition to the 10.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Colombo?
Questions?
Just one clarifying question, and thank you, I really do appreciate you doing here, I really do, it's great.
Thank you.
Could we clarify that you pointed out the tax advantage to the town of existing property tax, this $10,000? If this were a zone change and were changed to commercial, that would be subject to a different tax rate, is that correct?
In this, if the property is used for solar, the tax would remain at $10,000. If they're paying $10,000 now, they would still pay $10,000. Plus, the increment would be on the tangible improvements of property. The solar panels, that would be taxed at $5,000 per megawatt.
But so by changing the zoning to commercial would not affect?
No, I don't believe it would.
Can I be helpful on that? The statewide zoning ordinance just addresses the tangible tax. So if there is some shift in the value of the property or the mill rate of the property, that would be an obvious consequence that would happen.
Right, gotcha, okay. Thank you.
But it would not be less than the 10, I would imagine.
Yeah, we could agree to that.
Yeah,
I'm sure, I'm sure it'd be higher than that.
Members of the public? Vinnie, would you like to comment next?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Kevin? Kevin, want to state your name, address, and your occupation, please?
Sure. My name is Kevin Alberson. I'm a registered landscape architect in the state of Rhode Island. Office is located in Whitford, Rhode Island. I was tasked with the landscape architectural component of the project. Essentially, when I started off with the project was to do a review of the existing conditions of the site vegetatively, walk the site on a number of different occasions, found, as has been testified before, that it's a moderately mature forest, probably 30-year growth, 12 to 14-inch sort of general caliper of tree, probably 50 to 60-foot canopy. It does have a fairly open understory, except for some of the perimeters along where the wetlands are, or along where the meadow areas are, which is a normal condition for a managed forest area. There are some existing evergreen, laurel, things of that nature, vegetation that's along the Maxon Hill Road side. We are proposing to certainly maintain any of the vegetated areas on the interior of the site that are part of the regulated areas that's been testified before. But in addition, we're maintaining a minimum of 25 to 30 foot perimeter all around the south, east, and north sections of the site. Trying to maintain as much as possible along the western side of the site. There are some existing meadow areas that it's a fairly limited amount of vegetation that's there right now. But as part of that, we are proposing supplementing vegetation around the entire perimeter of the site. The goal of the project obviously is to obscure the view of any of the components of the system, from passing motorists, pedestrians, although it's limited pedestrian, certainly along Route 3, probably a little bit more along Maxon Hill, people walking their dogs, things like that. But then also to obscure the view from all the abutting residences around the site. So as part of that, we focused in your package is actually a plan set that actually does detail all the plantings within those specific areas. There are 6 areas in general that we focused on. The northwest corner, which there are some upland areas that the solar array is proposed. There's actually none proposed in the center area where there's an existing meadow, but there are some proposed at the southwest corner. So the northwest and the southwest corners are detailed more in your package. And then we actually split it up into 4 different zones all along Maxon Hill Road, trying to be cognizant of the residences that are certainly across the street from there. I actually did prepare some cross sections that may be helpful as well. I'll just show for initially here. This is the northwest corner of the site. Technical difficulties.
Excuse me, but Kevin's report is in part G of your package. If you want to follow along with it.
In the northwest corner of the site, as has been previously described, there's actually a fairly large grade differential between Route 3 and the project site, particularly where the panels are proposed. There's anywhere from a 12 to 14-foot grade change between there. So we're proposing to maintain as much vegetation along the edge as possible. There is some clearing that needs to happen, certainly for site angles from the driveway as required by DOT. But also we do have our stormwater basin, which there will be some limited clearings along there. We do propose, however, an evergreen buffer along the entire perimeter, but to try and maintain a naturalized condition as much as possible, it's a layered evergreen and deciduous buffer, so it's not just a row of arborvitaes along the entire perimeter. You can see here the grade change. This is at the northwest corner of the site. And these are the viewing angles from the cars down here. There's actually an existing, there's an existing and then a proposed berm on top of that. So really, even at initial installation, the solar panels will not be viewable. That next buffer continues along to the south. And then this is the enlargement of the southwest corner. Again, we're proposing along the entire perimeter of the site. To maintain as much vegetation as possible, and then supplementing it with evergreen and deciduous shrubs and trees. That continues along the entire western boundary of the site, and then also wraps around to where the residence is, down at the southwest corner. And you can see in the cross section here, we have about a 4 to 6 foot grade change differential that exists right now at the sort of center point there. That will be maintained, existing vegetation will be maintained, and then supplemental evergreen. Along where the residence is, it's a cross-section cut through the residence into the property. We're maintaining a minimum of 25-foot existing buffer that's along there, and then adding an additional 35-foot evergreen and deciduous buffer.
Kevin,
Yes?
is the idea to make the solar panels not visible?
That's correct.
And how about from Route 95? Can you see this parcel from Route 95 heading north?
From Route 95, there would be a limited ability to be able to see some cleared area, more than likely. Whether or not the panels would be visible, we would probably assess that.
And you assess it, and you would do planting so that it would not make it visible?
the intent of the planting design is to make it obscured from everywhere.
And that would be obscured from traveling north on Route 3 as well.
That's correct. Yes. From north and south on Route 3, as well as along Maxon Hill Road.
Along from the residences of Matson.
And the motorists that might be driving along Maxon Hill Road. Along Maxon Hill Road, this is at the northeast corner of the site. There's an isolated wetlands area that's going to be maintained, obviously, in its vegetative condition. We are maintaining 30 feet of vegetation along the road there. As I mentioned before, there is some limited evergreen shrub vegetation that's in that area, some laurels for the most part. What we're looking to do is supplement that with some more native shrub plantings for wildlife, food, and cover. And then on the back side of that, we're going to have the black fence, which will actually be planted in front of the fence will be an evergreen hedge of mixture of white pine, western red cedar, and also some hollies, native hollies. So all the plantings that we're proposing are all native to Rhode Island, or at least the eastern continent of the United States. In this area, the grade change is not as great as along Route 3, so that's why we've doubled the buffer plantings in that area. You can see it's fairly level going across that area currently. So with the topography staying the way that it is, we are proposing plantings in front of the existing vegetative buffer, shrub plantings behind it, and then evergreen trees behind that as well. A little further down along the eastern edge, again, we have a plan view for that, but the grade starts to get a little bit more in our favor. That will actually provide some added buffering. And then down at the far southeast corner where we are, it's at the southeast corner of the site. We're proposing an evergreen hedge along the entire edge of the site, including where there's going to have to be some national grid connection points and things, so the trees there would be to obscure the view of that. But then adding to the buffer between the residents, and we actually are calling out for supplemental plantings as well, so that even after construction, because the understory is fairly limited in this area, and the grade change is fairly flat in that area, so that's another reason why we have the panel fence in addition to the plantings. That's really going to be going in there.
So the panel fence is solid?
Panel fence is going to be on the inside of the site, plantings in front of it.
Solid?
Solid fence, yes. With a 6-inch critter crossing underneath it.
How many plantings are you proposing?
Well, it's a mixture of all different trees and large shrubs and things, but I would estimate, I have to go through, count them all on the different plant lists, but probably in the range of 500 or 600 new plantings.
And these would be something that would provide screening in the wintertime as well?
That's right. Yes, although deciduous trees, meaning trees that drop their leaves, are proposed, they're actually proposed to help recreate the layering of the forest. So the way that you try to plant is the larger things behind, evergreen in the buffer, then you have something in front, so it creates a layered texture of buffering, so it's not just a green wall, the dumpster effect.
Now, are you through describing the plantings you propose?
Yes, yep. I do have as well the different plantings as we did before. If there are any questions about what some of the plants are, but I'm sure that you haven't had a chance to really get into those directly. Do you have one other image that we could show? Obviously, it's just a we did a couple of studies as well about views from, as if you're driving up Maxon Hill Road and Route 3. We're seeing the existing vegetation along Route 3. This is viewed viewing south along Route 3 from about where the project site begins. The entrance drive would be around the corner over here, but this is what I'm talking about, the mixed buffer. We have the evergreens behind, we have trees in front and shrubs in front of that. the topography being maintained, and then this is along the, looking north from the other end of Route 3, maintaining existing vegetation, planting behind that, and actually layering a 3D along that side. Similarly, this would be along Maxim Hill Road, or maintaining the existing vegetation, the laurels that are behind, planting in front of the laurels, and planting behind them as well.
And if it is determined sometime in the future that additional planting is necessary, that's something you've been instructed to do?
That's correct. Yes, we have a plant list to supplement if needed, following construction as well. Should there be a hot area that, I know that the developers have communicated with people from the surrounding community. There hasn't been any contestment from what I understand. I didn't speak to that before, but if there are things that come up during construction, certainly we're willing to work with the homeowners.
Now, getting to the cutting aspect, how many trees, since you have walked the area, have you determined how many trees would necessarily be cut?
Yes, actually, this is detailed further. I worked with Sage Environmental on this, but in my site assessments, I was evaluating about 20 to 25 trees per 2,500 square feet, which works out to be about 21,000 trees.
And is that pretty much the extent of the trees on site?
Of the tree, you meaning following?
Yes,
No,
outside
it's
the wetlands, yes.
yes, outside of the wetlands, it's not everything because we're maintaining a 25 to 30 foot swath around the north, east, and south, but certainly for the developable areas in the middle. There's also a small sector in the center where we're connecting two wetlands. That's not getting cut, I should say.
And those trees being cut, the stumps would be removed, the soil left on site.
That's correct.
Okay. I don't believe I have anything more from Kevin. Do you have any questions? I'm glad to answer.
I do have a few questions.
I just have one wonderful presentation. This is more development plan review, and it's not helping me at all decide whether it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and deserves its own change. So I appreciate your level of expertise in presentation, but I'll have questions if and when you get back for development plan review.
Sure.
Follow up with my questions. So at the northwestern corner there, this berm that you're proposing?
The berm is there.
in place?
The berm is in place. Well, it's a grade change, but then there's an additional berm that's on the backside to hold in the drainage basin.
And are you planting on top of the berm?
We are planting on the face of the berm going up. We didn't want to plant on, we're planting on the existing berm, on the drainage berm. We don't want to plant on top of that because we might affect the integrity of that. So we're planting on the face of it.
West side,
The west side.
face of the berm? So you touched upon this, but help me visualize. So this idea of the evergreen and deciduous layering, specifically my concern is the seasonal change.
Yes.
Summertime, I have almost no concerns, wintertime.
Yes.
Help me visualize what.
So as part of this development, there's no area where there's not evergreen. Somewhere between the viewing place of the site, whether it be along Route 3 or the residences on Maxim Hill or along Maxim Hill, there will never be a spot where there's no evergreen that's backing up what that is. The deciduous plants in front just provide for sort of, what's the term I'm looking for, diversity of species. Certainly with evergreens, not a lot of fat content for birds and things with some of the berries and all that. So it's meant to more clearly mimic what a typical forested condition would be. So if you went out to the forest and you found an American holly growing there, you'd also find a corn saltern, like a goat dogwood, like growing next to it or in front of it in its understory. So we're trying to recreate what the forest would be like.
I follow that thinking, but if I were to walk into the woods right now, as natural as that might be, that's not doing a lot to obscure.
That's right. So
Which
we
should
are.
be, I think, is what your primary concern here is.
That is, but we're providing evergreen, but also providing diversity of species. So we don't want to just do a row of white pine. So there's always evergreen behind, it's things in front of it, so you'll have red twig dogwoods in front of it, or you'll have, we have native rhododendrons in front, so you've got something that's going to give you some visual interest, it's not just a green wall.
And then lastly, tell me a little bit about this additional planting scheme that you have going. So here we are, we're in the throes of construction, there's a big hole somewhere, or something's not working out. Who gets to specify that there'll be additional plantings? The town, contractor, the owner, the engineer?
Well, I guess I'll let you guys address that, but what we've discussed is that it would be communication with the homeowners.
Yeah, it's consistent with what I said, it would be a collaboration. And we don't foresee having a big hole, because we're hiring an expert to design against that. But if there is, we'll address it.
Can the town be brought into that?
Of course.
Okay. No disrespect to the homeowners, but might fall on their shoulders. Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Mrs. Collins. Yeah, I had a question, just because I happen to like landscape.
Sure.
I did take a look at your landscape plan, and I know you are putting in a lot of the bushes, but most of those bushes are rhododendron, and most of them are approximately 5 feet high. They grow maybe to 8 foot if they have to be really old to grow to 8 feet, but generally they're only 5 foot high. The solar panels start at 3 foot and go up to 9 feet. So I'm not sure that's going to block. And also rhododendrons in the winter turn their leaves into little cones because it's cold. They're not stupid. So they don't green out, they tuck. And then when it warms up to over freezing, then they start opening out. But otherwise, if it's under 32, they are basically not there. So I'm not sure, because I have, there's a lot of citizens on Maxon Hill. Route 3 is heavily traveled. Frontier Road will get busier with the new restaurant in there. I just am a little unsure about how much coverage you're actually going to get. And laurels are very light in the winter. They don't really do much.
Where the laurels are currently, we're actually planting in front of them.
They're very airy.
They're very airy, yes. They are, especially where they're growing right now, because they're in the shade of that area. But we're proposing some inkberry as well that's mixed in with there, and also a layering of these shrubs front and back and where those are to help beef that up. The rhododendrons that we did call out rhododendron maximum, they are the native rhododendrons, which will get, at full maturity, they'll get over 25 feet, but on average, they're about 12 feet.
Yeah, and it takes a really long time to get there. And I think my concern too is, especially on the Maxon Hill side, a black fence. I mean, unless you're going to mask the fence entirely, it'll start looking slightly prison-like.
The fence along Maxon Hill for its entirety is on the inside of the buffer,
Right.
so we're planting in front of that. So the
But you'll still see it in the winter. Yeah,
I mean,
it's reality. In reality, you're going to, and the black certainly helps better than silver. But I'm just a little concerned on the way the fence line of chain link looks, whether it's on Route 3 or it's on Maxon Hill. I mean,
I
I
understand.
don't want to look like Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Right. I understand.
So I'm a little concerned on that since it's our main road into Ashland.
Sure. The intent of the planting design, the way it is that it will create differences of
I do think you've accomplished that.
Okay.
I do, and the deciduous is certainly a great thing to add.
Okay.
Even though they lose their leaves, they are certainly more beautiful in the spring, summer, and fall.
Okay. Thank you.
So now your name and address and your employer.
My name is Wes Whitlam.
80 High Risk Avenue, Waltham, Massachusetts. I work for Carbon as their head of operations.
And you have designed the solar array?
Yes, everything on the low voltage side. What you see in the solar power plant, the low voltage side I designed it.
Okay. Now, could you describe for the board, please, where the solar array is to be located on the site?
So this is kind of a new approach. Solar is new, but we see there are a lot of improvements going on the equipment and the design approach. So we have basically 8 separate arrays here. All you see is black, these are solar panels. And my approach, my design approach is virtual central inverter approach. So all the electromechanical equipment, inverters, switchboards, and transformers are in the middle of the arrays. You see these little rectangles for each project. Those are the inverter islands. I call them like AC block. We have the inverters, then switchboards, panel boards, and then transformers. So panels, we generate DC electricity, and then we have DC string combiners. From these DC combiners, single cable goes to each inverter. So each inverter has one combiner box, which are going to be mounted on the rack on the panel.
Now, what is the purpose of the inverters? What do they do?
Inverter converts DC electricity to AC electricity.
It converts DC to AC?
Yes.
Okay. And how many do you have total on site?
We have 94 string inverters, each 125 kilowatt AC.
And you have transformers on site as well?
Yes, correct.
Could you point out where they're located?
The same AC block islands. So inverters, then switchboards, and then transformers. They're in the same location. I call it AC blocks island. AC blocks.
Is anything else in that box?
No.
And do the inverters or the transformers make noise?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And what kind of noise do they make? How much?
It's depends on the component, but these inverters have less than 60 decibel within 2 meters, but we have more comprehensive study prepared by other experts here in this room.
Someone else
so she's going to give more detailed information about the noise.
So these inverters and transformers located throughout the parcel. In your opinion, is that the best way to handle the conversion of DC into AC?
Yes, correct. This is the most optimized way. We optimize the DC and AC losses. This is a 1500 volt DC system, and the way we design the DC losses and the AC losses will be optimum.
And what type of panels are you using on the site?
We are using very high efficiency 395 watt 72 cells panels, monocrystalline, and the panel efficiency is 19.6%.
What does that mean?
Which means pretty efficient.
Okay. Did you ask a dumb question? And how long are those panels good for?
Those panels are good for 25 years. It's provided by the panel manufacturers. But if a system is treated well, you provide your inspection, preventive maintenance, you keep the site conditions well, it's good for 30-35 years.
Okay. And the panels are mounted on a rack, is that correct?
It's correct.
And is the rack attached to the ground somehow?
Yes, it's post-driven. We have I-beams. It's a post-driven design system, so there's no ballast. And every 15-20 feet, we will have one post.
And is there any concrete involved? Are the posts embedded in concrete?
No, no concrete.
The posts are driven into the earth?
Correct.
Okay. And with no concrete barrier? With no concrete?
We will have only concrete pads for this inverter and transformer islands.
Well, what was that again, please?
Inverter and transformer islands. We will have inverters, switchboards, transformers. They will have separate pads for each of them.
I see.
Every cable will be underground, so it has to go below the inverters, and then goes to switchboard and transformer. Everything will be underground, even under the pad.
Is there a place where the underground wiring will actually become overhead wiring at all?
There is only one possibility here. So we have two point of interconnection, one on this road and the other one is here, both 34.5 kilowatt. There's another expert who will give you more detailed information about interconnection. We will probably be using overhead poles to connect these two projects to each other for a single point of interconnection. And the rest will be underground.
All wiring underground?
Everything. DC, AC, low voltage, high voltage, everything will be underground.
Now, how large is each panel to that?
395 watts, if you're asking the dimensions.
Yes.
It's 3.6 and 6.2. So 2 meter to 1 meter.
Yeah. How high would it be?
So the ground clearance is 3 feet.
3 feet from the ground?
Yes, and the tilt angle is 205, so the maximum height will be 8.59 feet.
So it's 3 feet off the ground at,
Yes.
at an angle of 25, you say? 25 degrees? And the maximum height will be just under 9 feet?
Yes.
Okay. And they are mounted permanently?
They are mounted permanently to the racking structure, but I mean, when the day, the commissioning day comes, it can be removed.
Okay. And how are they maintained? How are the panels maintained?
So, my company, we also provide preventive maintenance inspection and whole maintenance of the equipment in the solar power plant. We do have twice a year inspection and once a year preventive maintenance of all electromechanical equipment, including inverters, switchboards, transformers, and switch gears on site, primary switch gears. We do conduct thermal image scanning. We check for the hotspots on all equipment. We check if there's anything wrong on the racking structure. We fix them. We always check our cables. We do IV curve tracing. It's a sophisticated test to see the performance of the panels, strings, and inverters. So we realize if there's any issue, we repair them. It's like a dynamic, ongoing process through the year. We also conduct, depending on the site conditions, once or twice a year, mowing, grass cutting.
So your maintenance is by visiting the site on a couple occasions a year?
It's more than that. But two, let's say, scheduled inspections and one time for preventative maintenance. The other times will be depending on the issues on the site. If we found issues, we just procure the equipment and get our tools and technicians and go fix them. Usually per site, this big, 15, we have been operating a lot of sites and I've been in solar for 16 years. For this big size, probably 5 to 6 visits annual with a pickup truck, maximum 3-4 person.
I see. The site, is this site, would it be monitored by some type of...
Yes, correct. This site will be remotely monitored. We have a very sophisticated monitoring system. We were able to see what's going on in each string during the panel level. And if there's any issue, the system sends us both SMS text and emails immediately. So we are always dynamically controlling. In our company, we have a group who are only doing 24/7 monitoring of the system.
And is this done by remote camera?
It's not a remote camera. It's a how can I explain this to you?
Web-based.
It's a web-based system. We have data cables installed to each equipment, and we have a central cabinet of monitoring. So we have access to all equipment on site.
24/7,
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So if a panel is not functioning, you know about it right away?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And then you send repair people from your company or from some other company?
Correct.
Okay. And your company is Carbone?
Correct.
And where are you located?
Carbone is located in New York City.
Okay. So you do your monitoring web-based from New York.
We even have an abroad office just for monitoring in Asia. So when we are sleeping, they are remotely monitoring the system. So we have a subcontractor in abroad.
And you visit the site maybe 7 times a year?
Correct.
Okay.
I personally visit as well.
You do it, okay. Anything else you can tell us about the equipment on site?
I mean, if you have any questions.
I have one. So if something breaks down, how long do you think it would take to send people out to fix it?
We have less than 24 hours dispatch commitment, and we are pretty well organized in the New England area. It usually takes us 2-3 hours just to driving time.
Okay. Do you have an office in Rhode Island, or is your office?
We have an office in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I'm just 1.5 hours from here. I just want to add, we also, as a part of the design, we provided a simulation study. We are using a specific software. We calculated the estimated energy from the system, considering all the losses. So this 15.4 megawatt system will, for the first year, will generate close to 21 million kilowatt hour electricity. So I think this is, I think Nicole will give you more detailed information. I'm not going into details, but just an answer from an engineering point of view. This is a very comprehensive amount of electricity generated by green power from solar, and it's not easy to reach this amount by having only small distributed solar projects, residential projects. So if you want to offset our carbon dioxide emissions, we need more geothermal, more hydroelectric, more wind, more solar, especially on utility scale projects. Thank you.
Any public questions?
Barbara, you okay?
No, I have others, but he's always very precise, and I think you always lay it out well. And I like the engineering, and it's clean and it's efficient. It has other issues, but we're not going there.
We're not going there.
We're not going there. But, yeah.
Just
I
as
just
a
like
point
it.
of reference,
Good job.
Penny, we do, can only go till 10,
Yeah.
and if you would need the board to have some time to discuss, just in light of the hour, if we can move towards any more of your experts who could speak to why we should approve this to a zone change from commercial to, from residential to commercial.
Okay, why don't I take Joe Lombardo at our time?
Okay.
Joe? Joe, you want to identify yourself?
Sure. For the record, it's Joseph Lombardo, home office in Hope Valley, Rhode Island. I have my master's in community planning, member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. As some of you know, I sat up at that table for about 9 years and sat in Jim's chair for about 6 years. So
I did not know that. Thank you, Chair.
so I have a lot of history, not only in Hopkinton because I live here, but a lot of experience working with comprehensive plans, helped write the first comprehensive plan, and I've worked on a number of them. And I think, while I know I have presented you with a report, I think in light of some of the comments that Tom made, and some of the comments that both Tom and Al made about clear cutting, if it's okay, I'd like to go just a little off script, and instead of really regurgitating my report, I think I could maybe help.
Sure. Joe, why don't you do that?
Thank you.
Joe, to clear up anything, I mean,
Sure.
you were the former planner in Hopkinton.
That's correct.
And over what period of time?
It's like from 91 to 96.
You've been a planner in other communities?
Richmond, Westerly, 2 communities in Connecticut.
So you're pretty well versed in the town plan in Hopkinton?
Very much.
You participated in its initial writing?
I did.
Okay.
I think while I too was very, very much impressed with the level of detail. We had some team meetings on the phone. I knew this was going to be an unbelievable amount of information for you folks to have. And granted, while you're not actually doing development plan review, you're getting the benefit of that. So I think what I can do is to maybe help you understand from a planning perspective how to deal with something like this, because I think what's driving the consternation that you're having is you're dealing with something that we've never dealt before, certainly in Hopkinton and maybe in Rhode Island. Clear cutting is not something we're used to seeing. If you are up north, I have a house up there, we see clear cutting all the time, large pieces. And there's a company 5 miles from my house with all the skidders and the cutters, so it's a different way of life and people are used to it. The one example that I can tell you about is those that travel on 95 in Connecticut. There's some very large fields that are created by clear cutting. I don't know the acreage, but I was guessing there was those 100-acre parcels that farm in North Stonington, I think it is. They clear cut it, they stumped it, planted it with ryegrass, and now I think there's corn growing on it. So you get an idea visually what that looks like. But I think from a comprehensive plan point of view, let me just say some things to you that I think might help you, not necessarily convince you, but help you get your arms around it so that you can grapple with this question. You know, we've all heard that term, if you build it, they will come. But I think with planning, it's if you plan it, they will come. And I think we've dealt with the exit 1 and exit 2 areas from when I was planning here in the early 90s to the present day. You've spent a lot of time and effort with experts and consultants that have helped you come in and try to write plans for those exit ramps. We look at them from the town perspective and say, these are our magnets, these are our opportunities for economic development, and we need to design zoning districts and special area plans so that when people want to come here and want to develop it, then we have the tools ready. You don't like being caught off guard with things. You took the bull by the horns here, you wrote a new section for 486 with specific requirements for solar panels and solar arrays of this size. So you've done the right thing. You did that with telecommunication towers. When those were starting to pop up, it was zoning variances for height. Didn't make any sense. So we wrote regulations to control that and regulate it. So I think that the struggles that you're having here tonight are you feel that you've done your best plans and you've created these areas around the 2 exit ramps in order to permit and allow economic development growth. And to some extent, I think you've done very well at exit 1. And you look at what's there now, those are good starts, those are good improvements. And I think the issue that you have now is you've got this site that's been designated on your comprehensive plan for this mixed village concept. And I think, Tom, you hit on it a little bit. You know, these areas, I've actually spoken to 2 or 3 companies or groups that have looked at that site specifically, and actually I was on board in an early stage looking at them. They just never got off the ground. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. The site itself had issues. And number 2, the economy that draws or allows these developments to happen. They have to have the anchor stores if they're retail, if they're going to have a hotel component, they need those big pieces to make any of these mixed village things go. Otherwise, it really ends up as a residential development. But I think the present owner had some thoughts and design on just residential development. So the only way I can tell you to try to get your arms around this is you're now presented with an opportunity. The town is presented with an opportunity. You have a site that's been basically in that condition for forever. It's been designated on the comprehensive plan for this mixed village concept to produce some type of economic development, jobs, and growth. It just hasn't happened. I suspect that maybe someday it might happen, but it's hard to figure that out. We've certainly got other areas allocated there for economic development. So I think the best way I can tell you to approach this is look at it as an opportunity. If you can get around the clear-cutting part of it and say, well, it does create a certain amount of economic development. It will produce some taxable benefits. And with the horizon of 25 to 30 years, it is somewhat of a holding pattern. It is kind of an interim use that, you know, while you clear cut those areas, that doesn't mean it can't be put back into some other use, be it a village someday or a retail shop, outlet store, anything. It doesn't prevent that from happening in the future. And that's I think the benefit of that thought process is, if you did something else there, it may be permanent. But in this case, I don't look at these as permanent. I look at them as interim. And I know that's a new concept for us in planning. It's usually you design it, build it, and then it's done. So I think, you know, as you look at what I wrote in the report, there are parts of the comprehensive plan that will help you try to look at this, that support it. I think the fact that there's solar energy system design guidelines that can be implemented, at least you know how it will come to you under development plan review. I think if you take the additional time, if you need it, to review the book that was presented to you, you'll have a full grasp of what will be on that site and what you would expect. You know, I think you can say that it's, you know, consistent with certain parts of the plan, the economic development side of it. As Mr. Nakarado pointed out, there's really an inconsistency between the land use elements plan, map, and zoning ordinance already, and that's been that way for a while. So you have an opportunity here to do something, and I'll use that word one last time. It's just a matter of, if you look at the bigger picture, does it make sense to change that zone and change that designation on the plan? So the last thing I'll tell you is, I don't think we really thought of it when we were writing those plans in the early 90s, and I worked on several of them. I worked on some updates. I've worked on small additions to plans. But as you know, by state law, you can change those comprehensive plans 4 times a year. So the plan's been in existence 25 years. Could have really changed the plan 100 times. And I don't think we have, but we could have. So it is a living, breathing, moving document, even though when you finish it, you go, well, there it is. It's done. It is, but it can be changed, and it can be changed for the better in some cases. So I think you have to look at it in that respect too. It's not a fixed document. It moves. It's updated. It's changed, and things do change over time. Who would have predicted the solar array energy push that we have right now? I didn't see it coming. So now it's everywhere. There's programs that are making it work for the developers that are proposing it. And I think the long-term benefits to our citizens and citizens of the whole state. Be able to produce this energy, costs are down, and it's clean. So if that helps, I hope it does. But that's how I look at these projects as a planner who is trained to look at things more globally and looking from above and looking down at it, try to understand how it all fits in. I'd be certainly happy to answer any questions you have, and I hope that that's helpful a little bit.
Joe, if I may.
Sure.
Right now, the comprehensive plan designates this parcel as mixed-use village.
Correct.
In the plan itself, I believe the plan requires that it indicate any inconsistencies between the future land use map and present zoning. And there is indeed an inconsistency.
Right.
It's zoned RFR 80, but it's designated mixed-use village. Mixed-use village, you probably were around, I think it was proposed to be added to the zoning ordinance maybe 10, 12 years ago. And it did not pass. And since then, the town hasn't done anything to renew it. But in the plan, it designates, I'm going to show you a portion, that's probably a draft, but, and maybe it's got incorporated. There are certain parcels that are designated to be rezoned.
Right.
And this parcel happens to be included.
Yes, it is.
It's lot 4, lot 25 on Assessors Plot 4.
Correct.
And it's designated to be changed. These, it says finally, the following parcels in the vicinity of exit 1 area should be rezoned. And they're recommending from RFR 80, which is the present zoning, to mixed use.
That's correct.
Well, we both know that can't happen because there's no mixed use.
But, yeah, and what I was saying earlier kind of ties in with that. Let's say somebody came to the town and wanted to do a mixed-use development. The change from RFR 80 to mixed use would be relatively simple because the plan is directing you to do it, even though it's not there on the zoning map. So that's a different application. So here you have something a little different than mixed use. You have a commercial use being presented. So that's why it requires both the map change on the comp plan and the zoning.
Do you see in the so-called mixed-use category a commercial component?
Oh, well, certainly, yes.
Yeah. So perhaps this proposed use is not far from what the
Well, as I said, it would
comp
definitely,
plan is recommended.
would certainly have a commercial component.
Yeah.
And all mixed uses don't necessarily have to have residential.
Right.
Unless the ordinance that does get crafted requires it.
Perhaps that's why they kept it, because it's residential, and if mixed use is gonna have residential, and it's by someone's residential, it didn't seem so inconsistent. But perhaps going to more of an industrial, commercial, there seems to be more of a disconnect, because it is in such a residential area.
I mean, a mixed use is,
Just speaking from, looking at it from a high level. So,
mixed use can be office, hotel,
yeah.
restaurants, movie theater, shops, and no residential. Now, I would still classify that as mixed use.
Correct.
How about a use such as solar, which does not require a septic system, does not require water, has no lighting problems? Is that more akin to a commercial, not a commercial, but a residential use, or even more benign than a commercial?
Well, it's probably the
residential?
most, it's certainly one of the most benign commercial uses if you're going to categorize it. You know, the fact that it's part of a business, I would probably still classify it as commercial.
Yeah. But it's certainly a commercial use that doesn't have the usual commercial aspect. I mean, who would have contemplated when this plan was first drafted in 1995 that you would have a demand for solar? I mean, it was not heard of. So, I mean, we're trying to do something, I'll say the speech is for later, but time is running out.
Well, thank you for your time. Any board members have a question? Did I help?
Tremendously. I read the narrative word for word, so.
Do you have any more witnesses?
I do, I have 3 more, but why don't I call Nicole, since you spent all this time putting this assessment together and to testify about the noise aspect of it.
Well, actually, I was going to talk first about the carbon, because there seems to be a lot of questions, if that's okay with you.
Go right ahead, take right over.
Hi, Nicole Melaniphy with Sage Environmental of Pawtucket.
Nicole, let me put your CV into evidence here.
Sure. So I've been practicing environmental engineering for 17 years, and so I'll keep it short and sweet. So we did a carbon net benefit analysis on the operation of this solar farm. So we incorporated the life cycle of the solar panels, so looking at the carbon that's emitted from manufacturing the equipment, the transportation to get the panels there, installation, your maintenance, everything that goes along with the solar farm. We also looked at the loss of carbon from the sequestration from the trees that will be cleared. So 21,912 trees is what we estimate would be clear as part of this project. So we looked at the loss of carbon from that. We didn't take into account the carbon, so the additional plantings that Kevin had mentioned, those new plantings, we didn't take that, which is it would actually taking some of that. So when you look at the total amount of carbon, so looking and comparing it to if this was producing 11.75 megawatts using coal or oil or natural gas, the difference of that offset, so by taking 11.75 megawatts off and substituting it for this, you're seeing 13.4 to 40 million pounds of carbon dioxide removed. every year. So to kind of put that into perspective with trees and how many trees you have to plant in comparison, you're comparing that to 69 to 207,000 trees every year you have to plant in order to be able to make that carbon offset.
You know, we're all for solar.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure we're for solar on this parcel that's currently zoned residential that has a boatload of wetlands. So we get carbon footprints, we get all of that.
Yep.
So.
I'm sorry, was that me talking?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. We understand. Yeah, we understand the carbon footprint. I heard you at the town council. But so, and I'm getting a little snippy because it's getting way past my bedtime. So, but as far as it goes, I just want to know, I haven't heard why I should recommend to our town council of Hopkinton to change this from residential to a commercial. And so, are we going there?
Well, I mean, so the other aspect that I had looked at it was from noise, and so this will not contribute to any noise to any of the residents surrounding here. It does not exceed kind of the background sound. So background sound is 35 decibels, and so we looked at it from a 40 decibel range, which is what constitutes an urban area for nighttime, and it doesn't exceed that. That's also the World Health Organization says 40 decibels, anything above that's among weak. So there's no sound off-site. We also went through and looked at a variety. I don't want to take up all the details, but kind of impacts that ones would be concerned of. So looking at the soils, the groundwater, surface water, wetlands, floodplains, the wildlife and habitat, threatened and endangered species. I talked about the air quality aspect of it, noise, visual aesthetics, lighting, transportation, cultural resources, socioeconomics, and then waste management and pollution. So this is an opportunity to give back to the environment. It is an opportunity to also make money over the course of the project. Just from the percentage that you'd be getting back from the energy, over 30 years, that's $1.8 million that you'd be getting. It's about $68,000 a year that you'd be getting from this. So it's a great way to kind of build the economy for the town. Yes, you are having to clear some trees. There are wetlands there, and there will be temporary disturbances as they're doing the construction, and where those panels are, the animals will still be able to move between them. It's not preventing them from, having habitat and building a little home in between those panels. They're going to be able to freely move in and out of this area, so where, this isn't the fencing, but around it, they're going to be able to go through it. Because right now, it's really just a wildlife, not really, it's a wildlife corridor for animals to be able to travel in between, across the road. They're still going to be able to do that. It's not going to be preventing them from doing that. The fencing's not going to prevent them. I mean, for the little critters, it's actually going to provide them some protection from the larger critters because they won't be able to get in there. From our perspective for even larger deer, I mean, they won't be able to get through the fencing, but all the other small critters are going to be able to get in and out of that. And the entire area isn't being fenced because the wetlands, for instance, there's no panels there. There's not going to be any fencing, so they'll be able to go in and out, which normally you find that good deer anyways. So it's not really preventing space for them to live. Yes, construction is going to disturb them, but after that construction, which is just a few months, I think it was 6 to 9 months, after that, it's going to sit there. It's not going to prevent them from, moving back in. So, from a long-term perspective, there's no chronic impacts to this area. If you're looking to try to have some economic development for the land, this is an opportunity that you're not going to disturb long-term your habitats because they'll be able to come back in there.
Nicole, you prepared the environmental assessment?
Yes, I did.
Submitted with it.
Yes,
if you have any questions on the assessment as well, Nicole is available to answer any questions on that.
Does the project become unviable if you take out your little islands of panels?
Are you referring to these ones?
Ralph Colombo from Southern Sky. I would say it becomes unviable. The strategy, if I may just indulge for give good content and the answer to the question. There's fixed costs with a project like this. Land control, the infrastructure, to interconnect to the national grid system, and it's expensive. And we're trying to distribute that cost. If I lost that, and lost that, and just ended up with this right here, I would be heavily challenged to it. Because I can't, maybe it's 20% of the distributed cost, and to reburden that 20% here would be economically problematic. I'm not saying that I couldn't do anything if we looked at all of these and said, this is an environmentally sensitive area. We like the flow, the habitat path there. I certainly could consider that, but to just eviscerate all of it and just do this would be problematic.
Okay, thank you.
You raise an interesting point there, because obviously this is not a prime piece of developable real estate. Thus, Joe, why it hasn't been developed as a mixed use or anything else. So if you're saying the solar component barely works on it, if some of the environment prevented some of it, it's leaning me a little more towards your favor, because either that land stays vacant and let the birds and the buffalo roam on it, or something like this happens. One of my negatives to this is, I would rather see these solar things going in places like deserted gravel pits, the old landfills, land that can't be used for anything else. My hesitation economically for this is using up good developable land for 20, even though, as your real estate person pointed out, it's an interim thing, as you pointed out also, Joe. I can be convinced a little bit more because of nothing has been there since you and I and Joe and a few others wrote the plans. And we have updated them, as you said. Okay.
If I may, just my background is finance, and so I tailor my answers to it. I've done residential development, commercial development, solar development. When you look at it, the assessment I get, from my experience, is the alternative is residential development.
Well, and even that's next to impossible with the environmental concerns.
Well, you have this stuff, right? You do have that.
But if it was financially viable, it probably would have been done by now.
I think it's the only other alternative, in my opinion. And so could you fit 20 or 30 lots in there? Sure you could. We all know that economic formula for a township. Two school-aged children, you're going to collect over 25 years just shy of $1.5 million in taxes, unburdened, versus, yes, you're going to collect taxes on the residential, but it's negatively burdened. And so when you look at that economic formula, it's a compelling argument. I know this discussion is largely about the town and the town's desires to preserve. This is nice land, even though it's got a lot of wetlands on it. It's a nice piece of property. But to me, an economic formula certainly plays a role in this discussion. So, and I think, from my standpoint, I'm a finance person, the most compelling argument I can make to this board is the economics. And the economics have, direct impact to the town's budget and also an indirect impact to all the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I call Mr. Scotty, who's our real estate expert?
We don't have time to chat. Within our.
How about if I ask for 15 minutes? Yeah, a lot of that.
Actually, our meeting will end at 10. So we have to adjourn at 10 according to our agenda, and we don't want to have any violations of the Open Meeting Act this
please, I'll give Mr. Scott.
Peter?
What's like the floor? Yeah, the floor.
To hear the experts, but not engage in any discussion otherwise. Close your hearing.
Actually,
If you're so inclined to grant an extension for the time, you can do that. But not allow time for discussion. Tackle that. Jim would have to tell us about the time frame. Tackle that at the next meeting. Perhaps we can form a discussion. We digress here for a moment. We have time to do that.
Well, if the applicant is amenable to it, I believe the applicant is advertising for a public hearing to commence with the town council. Right, so
The town council, well, that advertisement is handled by the town clerk. The applicant.
okay, do you have a date for that?
The hearing is, yes, the 20th.
Okay, the hearing, the public hearing for the town council is going to open on the 20th. Now, they can continue it. So they can continue and wait until they get something from the planning board. So,
Are we under any timeline?
well, the only timeline, see, there's two things going on here tonight, the zoning amendment and a comp plan. Technically, you're supposed to report back to the town council within 45 days of receipt of a zone change request. So we're gonna exceed that, but I believe all parties have agreed to waive that, because we have the comprehensive plan amendment in here, which really doesn't have a time frame on it to report back to the council.
We can report back to the council. We haven't made a decision yet.
True.
Well, the advisory opinion on zone change is supposed to go back to them within 45 days.
Correct. We can say that we haven't made a decision, which is what we did at the last
Right.
time this applicant came.
Right, you can drop the whole, you can punt the whole thing to the town council, and whatever you want to do, you can do.
Well, I wouldn't be advocating that. We have a responsibility. I want to hold up to it. But I also want adequate time to digest the information, discuss with other board members, and then reach a logical conclusion. I'm not suggesting we dismiss it.
As long as the applicant's amenable to waiving any timelines, you can go as long as you want.
Mr. Nacarado, what's your comment?
I believe I had indicated to Jim that I was okay with waiving the 45-day requirement. The only problem may be well, let's say, we would waive any requirement to allow you to make a decision, okay?
Well, where's this 45 days? I saw the material yesterday and we were talking about making a decision
Well, it's to
within 30
protect,
days of
well,
now.
no, well, it's to protect the applicant so that they actually get us to.
No, I understand that. So when did the clock stop?
Yes.
When they
Give us, you have to wait another month.
When the planning department gets receipt of the request for the zone change.
Well, that's an unreasonable amount of time.
It's 45 days.
So it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right, that's the move.
That'd be all right.
We should have at least 2 meetings to work on a project of this size and nature.
Back and forth. I don't know if it's going to be a problem.
Penny,
Yes.
after consulting our experts, we decided that we will continue to hear your experts for
Okay, I'll keep very short.
not much longer, but a little longer, and then we'll close the hearing.
Okay.
And then we will convene again next month to figure out what we're going to do
Next month.
next month.
Which is the first Wednesday of the month.
Which is the first Wednesday of the month.
So that would continue our council.
Well, I will ask the council at the conclusion of what they hear on February 20th to keep it open strictly for the input of the planning board. They just did that with the comp plan amendment approval. So I will ask them to do that. I can't make that decision for them, but there is precedent for it, and I believe they'll be amenable to it.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Without committing to it.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
Your next witness, your expert.
Okay.
Scotty?
My name is Peter M. Scotty. I'm a certified general appraiser in the states of Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. I hold the MAI designation from the Appraisal Institute, which is the highest designation you can get in the appraisal business. I have been appraising real estate in Rhode Island since 1975. Former chairman of the Rhode Island Appraisal Board. My qualifications are attached to my report. My charge in this hearing was to determine really what effect this would have on surrounding properties and on the town in general. Essentially, what's proposed here is not going to be visible, not going to make noise, not going to smell, not going to impact town services. And the only thing it really will produce is taxes. So from the standpoint of impact on surrounding properties, I don't see any. The question is whether allowing this is going to preclude the town from developing this according to the mixed-use village plan. So let's take that in a couple of components. Retail. Globally, you can answer that in one word. That's Amazon. What's happened in the retail business nationally is that 2017 had $90 billion less of sticks and mortar retail sales than in 2000. So in 17 years, instead of going up like everything else, retail sales declined by $90 billion. On a local basis, there's so little retail in Hopkinton that I did a search. We did Hopkinton, Richmond, Westerly, Charleston, and South Kingston. Using CoStar. Are you familiar with CoStar at all? It's a national commercial real estate site. It's kind of MLS for commercial, but on a national basis. And hands down the best data out there. According to CoStar, there are 3 million square feet of retail space in that geographic area. 94% occupied. Current rent on a pure net basis is $16.23 a square foot. Average over 5 years, $13.72. Over the past 12 months, there's been negative absorption. In other words, more vacancy than absorption in the market. Under current market conditions, the cost of construction of retail, anywhere, let alone in this spot, exceeds on the average what it's worth. In other words, you lose money the day you put a shovel in the ground. One of the problems here, there just aren't enough rooftops to support any kind of retail development. From an office perspective, in that same geographic area, Hopkinton, Richmond, Westerly, Charleston, and South Kingston, there are 740,000 square feet of office space in 99 buildings, 5.5% vacancy, gross rent of $20.74 a square foot. Absorption is between 1 and 1.5 years. Negative absorption last year of about 9,000 square feet. If you look at the statewide office space, there have been 2 significant office constructions. One was Coachway Bank in Warwick, about 45,000 square feet, cost about $225 a foot to build. Rents wouldn't support that. The only other one is 80,000 square feet in East Providence at Kettle Point. University Orthopedics, built fast, just about done. Owner occupied on both of these. There's been no speculative office construction that I'm aware of in this state in the last certainly 5 years, probably 10. Even if you look at, read the paper about the 195 project downtown, to get that development going, Governor Raimondo subsidized it by 30% of the cost. 30%. That's how far off the market is from what it will support. Construction costs in Rhode Island are the same as they are in Boston, but rents in Rhode Island are about a third. So the chances of anything happening here in the foreseeable future, I don't see it. This is a great interim use. You get 25 to 30 years. It's been 10 years since they changed it, since they designated it as a mixed-use village. Zero has happened. Residential development with the wetlands, not feasible, and when you consider the impact on town services, not a viable option. So I think you either let this go through, or you sit with 137 vacant acres for the foreseeable future. Happy to answer any questions.
You produced a report that is included in Index M, I believe.
Yeah, I believe Nicole.
Yes, yeah. So you don't paint a particularly happy
Well, I'm not the
development.
I'm not the cheeriest guy in town, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm not alone
Yeah.
in that at all. I think we're in a, right now, I think we're in a bubble. So it's gonna happen, what happened in the last 6 or 8 months. I don't see it, and I think we're due for a major correction soon.
How about from a residential standpoint, a comprehensive permit? You know, with the bonuses for low income or not necessarily low income, but moderate income.
Well, then there's significantly better project, better piece of land in Hopkinton than this. You don't see a lot of residential development.
Yeah.
The numbers just aren't there. They just don't have cost of construction, cost of the roadways, permitting, wetlands. Not gonna happen.
And this use you visualize as somewhat of an interim use for the market to eventually correct itself.
Yeah, if things change, if there's a sea change in the retail business or the office demand, 25 years, maybe you get some development, but, you know, I think it's just unlikely in this spot.
You don't have the traffic count by this spot to justify major national companies to locate there.
You don't have the traffic count and you don't have the rooftops. You don't have the population to support it. And you just, honestly, you don't have demand. Even if you're in the middle of Providence, you don't have demand for either retail or office. And that's a fact.
I take it that the retail market you're referring to, the bricks and mortar, is impacted greatly by the use of online shopping. Is that correct?
I didn't walk into a store this Christmas. I did everything online. And I'm old.
Older, don't use
older. Well, you know, my kids who are in their 30s, never go to stores. It's all online.
I don't have anything further from Pia.
I'm good.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
I call, yeah, you did the math. This is on the same day.
Hi, Jeffrey Hansen, President of Millstone Engineering in Warwick, Rhode Island, a registered professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island.
Jeffrey, you did a map for Mr. Del Vicario that shows its item, I believe, in the environmental assessment. And that map, well, why don't you tell us what the map shows?
Can I just...
Sure.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I was asked to look at the proximity of the locus, the subject property, and some of the large retail areas in the area, in the Stop and Shop in Westerly and Stop and Shop down in Richmond. Stop and Shop in Richmond is, as the crow flies, 6.7 miles from the site. Stop and Shop in Westerly is 5.5 miles in a straight line from the site. And then I took some of the average daily traffic data that's available from the Department of Transportation and applied that on the map and demonstrated that the Stop and Shop in Richmond have in front of that on Route 138 is the average daily traffic of 26,000 vehicles per day, and the Stop and Shop in Westerly has an average daily traffic of 26,400 vehicles per day, and the average daily traffic on Route 3 directly in front of the site is 3,200 vehicles per day. So it was the map was used just to demonstrate the disparity in the traffic in the large retail areas compared to this site and what it would potentially support.
And did you also take into consideration the permit that is located at the Route 3 exit and I believe it's a entity controlled by Mr. Ayala?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Not familiar with that?
I haven't done that.
No, you would have done that. And with the average daily traffic count being considerably lower than the two Stop and Shops, approximately the same distance away, are there any other entities that are, just say, there are any other entities on Route 3 that would benefit from a traffic count that would be enhanced with more cars?
I think you'd have to speak more towards a real estate expert to address that.
Your map just shows the two Stop and Shops because they're the closest retail outfits from this site.
Correct.
And it was to show that if the traffic site in Richmond and Wesley have approximately the same number of cars going by, and this site has, what, a third of it at best? Not even less than a third?
Yeah, less than a third,
That
about
there's no
25%.
There would be no particular interest in this site as a retail site?
Right, but this site just doesn't, this site just does not compare in terms of traffic count with those large retail areas.
Yes, I see, okay, thank you. That's all. Do you have any questions or
Just stop, this is, I don't want to say too say. My understanding is that there's a, used to be a motorcycle shop before that was Cycle Brothers, before that was a grocery store in Richmond.
It used to be Stop and Shop.
Used to be Stop and Shop. Does Stop and Shop still hold the lease on that building to prevent another grocery store from going in?
That's
my understanding. Because that to me implies that Stop and Shop is aware that a competitor may try to move in the area and is holding down on an easy place to do it. I don't know if you have any data.
I have no information on that.
That's located where?
Richmond. Just down the
Plaza.
street.
The plaza across from the CBS.
Probably where the Y is.
Where the Y is, yeah.
You got one more town, someone from town versus office?
Yeah.
On the interconnection? Just identify yourself and your employer, please.
Tom O'Loughlin with LG Consultants' offices in Canton, Massachusetts. Before I get started, I sit on that side of the table for West Greenwich. I know how fun these are this late at night, so I will be extremely quick. Basically what we have is The site's going to be broken up into 3 projects. Project 1, Project 2, and Project 3. Projects 1 and 3 will take their entrance off of Route 3 Main Street. Project 2 will be off of Maxon Hill Road. All 3 projects are relatively the same. We'll come in, we'll have National Grid's equipment, their metering, their disconnects. We'll have a visible disconnect on our side for safety, have our distribution equipment come into our individual metering, then into our individual transformers, which will then go off to, these will all be located on the separate pads that Sinar was talking about on the site, and then that all goes off to the DC arrays. Same thing, we'll tap off of it's a 34.5 line coming in from National Grid, and the same thing for the lower project down on Route 3. Same thing on the 34.5 coming in off of Maxon Hill Road. Only difference between projects, as we've identified in projects 1, 2, and 3, is project 1 is 4 transformers. These 2 projects are just two transformers each. The existing lines are already there from National Grid. They're 34.5 kV lines that exist. There may have to be some expansion or some extension of the line, but they're already in the neighborhoods. The impact studies are in with National Grid, and they're reviewing them now for any impact that the system will have on that this system will have on their system, and then they'll identify all the requirements that are needed for protection.
Now, this is for the interconnection between
National Grid and the site, yes. Yes.
And will the lines be above ground at where you would be working on?
Yes, all the lines for National Grid now are pole mounted lines, and then we'll transition underground over here.
And how many poles would you have to construct?
Typically on the incoming lines, there'll be 3 to 4 poles for National Grid to set their poles, to put their recloser, put their metering in and whatnot. Might be a little bit different on this site once they come up with their final design because of the couple of different interconnects for projects 1 and 3, but so probably no more than, I would say, 6 poles total.
So the wiring designed by Sinar would come out of the ground?
Yes.
Up to these 3 poles?
Yes.
Okay. And then would that be 3 poles at what you consider 3 particular?
Well, where each one of these little dots are, that indicates a transition from overhead to underground, and that would be a separate pole. So you would come up, we would have a pole here. What you'd have is a medium voltage switch at the top of the pole. Provides a visible break for safety purposes if you ever have to work on the facility. And then this dotted line here represents the National Grid over here. So on this side of the line over here is National Grid equipment. This side line over here is National Grid equipment. And you'll have a couple of poles here. You'd have a pole for the metering, which is what this represents. You'd have a pole again for their disconnect. So you'd be looking at probably 1, 2, 3 poles here, 3 poles there, and then again 3 or 4 poles over here.
Any other equipment that would be installed for National Grid?
No, it's just a visible break for National Grid for their safety, their primary metering, so that they can monitor the sites. And then again, it transitions into then it turns over, and you have the same visible disconnect switch for Sidar's guys, so that they can isolate the system safely.
And have you applied for the interconnection?
Yes, I believe the application's already in, and for all 3 projects.
And would you expect approval from the grid?
Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't. I think one of the reasons is it was brought over, and one of the lines was put on the Maxon Hill line. I think that's a separate circuit for grid, so it allows them to dissipate the 12 or 15 megawatts differently on their system.
For the Maxon Hill portion, would that go back through our site to Route 3, or would it travel along?
No, I think what they're going to be doing is they're going to be coming down on the southwest or southeast corner of the project is where it's going to come out from Maxon Hill, where I think it's proposed right now.
And do you know what substation you would be connecting into?
That I can't give you right now.
National Grid
It's,
tells you anyway. They tell you where to go.
yeah, it's whatever two circuits are on Maxon Hill Road and Route 3.
Okay.
And that goes back to whatever their locals. I don't have the name of that on top of my head right now.
Okay. And when did you anticipate hearing back from National Grid on the application you filed?
Yeah, it's usually,
Next one.
yeah, they usually about 90 days to get it done.
Any questions?
Thank you.
If that's it.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we will meet next month to
You want to continue the hearing or?
close the public hearing? I think we should close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Our meeting is closed. Your public hearing is closed.
Okay.
Our next order of business is new business. There is none.
Yeah, you can walk up with just so I know what's going on. Have I got to waive anything with this board? That's the time
Could if you'd like to, I mean, just don't contest anything, you know. Just let it go. You should waive it, I guess. You should decide to be late.
I heard that there was a that's what I heard during the hearing.
It would be lovely if you would write your way out for a term of 45 days to receive the There is no date for I know that our meeting is closed, we have a few more things to do. Thank you. Jim, our planner. Do you have any more to add, or? I appreciate that. Of course, Barbara, any public comments?
I'm sorry, I'm introducing myself. I'm Linda Discovery.
Yes, yeah, you're traveling. And
how Hopkinton, how Ashland looks as you go into its Main Street matter as well. Making money there. And I believe when we made the change to the mixed use, it was the owner's request. So if he chose it, we helped him out with it. We also thought we would use that for low income. That was one of the main concerns in the contract, because the state wants us to do low income, which I'm not fond of. But that was the reason that we did a mixed use there, so that we could do low income, which the state demands. And otherwise we have to find another place where we could do low income.
Thank you. Our date of our next regular meeting is March 7th, 2018. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Our meeting is closed. Thank you very much. Helen and Mrs. Carlo.
I was actually going to suggest that you move the affordable housing